from his pipe that burn anything it comes into contact with. The sheer multitude and wide range it can cover makes avoiding it very difficult. Acidic sludge. The user spits out a small purple liquid at the target, which evaporates in acidic fashion when in contact with the target. It's shown to be powerful enough to incapacitate Kushina Uzumaki, even though she was only hit with a small part of the liquid on her leg. Acrobat. The Acrobat is a kenjutsu used by Killer Bee in tandem with his super vibrato lightning release swords, and the standard technique of his unique disturbance taijutsu fighting style. When in battle, Bee holds his swords in a peculiar and unique manner. More often than employing his hands, Bee would wield his blades in and between various parts of his body. The first two are held in the hinge joint of his right and left arm, another between his shoulder blade and neck, one in his mouth, under his left armpit, another between the hip joint of his right raised leg, and the back leg of the same raised leg. As strange as it seems, Killer Bee is extremely skilled with these blades and this fighting style, which he began adopting since a young age. The most dangerous aspect of this style is the unpredictability of his movements, easily catching his opponents by surprise. Adamantine attacking chains. These chains formed by Kureen are an incomplete version of the adamantine sealing chains technique unique to the Uzumaki clan. Using this technique, Kureen manifested chakra-based chains from her body, which she can use to attack and pulverize a target. Despite the adamantine attacking chains being an incomplete version of the adamantine sealing chains, Kureen was able to use this technique to destroy most of Toby's giant wooden statue and its many hands. While stated to be incomplete, in the anime, Kureen later showed the ability to not only attack with the chains, but to neutralize her target by binding and nullifying their chakra with the chains. When used against Suigetsu Hozuki, it sent him flying some distance away, leaving him incapacitated and his body in its jelly-like state. Kureen also seems capable of manipulating the size of her chains to fit the situation. Adamantine power, Akala. Hashirama kicks the opponent away and raises some wood tendrils to strike the enemy down. With the opponent laying on the ground, Hashirama gathers a large amount of chakra into his right fist, jumps, and drives it into his foe's torso. The impact causes the ground to break apart and a small forest to erupt from it. Adamantine prison wall. After using transformation adamantine staff, Enma clones himself to create a lattice box around a target. Because of the toughness of Enma's adamantine form, the opponents cannot break through the box once it's formed. When this box is formed around allies, this effectively protects them from harm. When it's formed around opponents, this effectively imprisons them until Enma chooses to release them. Adamantine seal, Monkey Yang suppression. After placing Fuinjutsu tags in an area, the users create a sealing barrier that takes the form of an ethereal monkey hand that cages the target. The seal requires a substantial amount of chakra to complete, and can quickly tire out the user, allowing the target to escape. Adamantine sealing chains. This is a sealing technique that is characteristic of the Uzumaki clan. Users produce chains made out of their own chakra which emerge from their torso. Users control the chains as they extend outwards from their body, most commonly to wrap around targets and restrain them. Kushina Uzumaki creates such a barrier not only to prevent the Ninetales from escaping a defined area, but also to prevent the third Hokage from entering it. When she was the Ninetales Jinchuriki, Kushina used the chains to bind the Ninetales within her subconscious. After her death, some of Kushina's chakra was sealed within her son, Naruto Uzumaki, allowing her to produce the chains from his body in order to help him combat the Ninetales. During the Fourth Shinobi World War, Kureen awakens the ability to produce similar chains, which she uses to lash against and ultimately destroy a wooden opponent. Afterimage clone. Shisui uses the body flicker technique and moves around, creating several afterimages. With his speed, he can move between his afterimages and deliver attacks from each of them having mass behind them. If attacked, he moves out of the way, letting his opponent's attack go through one of his afterimages. Air Gold Dust Protective Wall. Making use of his gold dust, the 4th Kazekage raises it above him to create a thick barricade in order to block incoming aerial attacks, whilst using hand gestures to dictate the shape the barrier adopts. This ability is strong enough to guard against even Gaara's Sand Hail technique. Air Sand Protective Wall. This air defense technique creates a giant shield of sand that is suspended in midair by raising a great amount of sand from the ground. By gathering the best possible mineral-rich sand, the hardness of the shield is considered to be very high. It was strong enough to protect Sunagakure from Deidara's C3, and stop a lightened Tengai Shinsei. In the last, Naruto the movie, Gaara uses this technique in conjunction with wind-natured chakra, creating multiple giant sand shields to protect his village from a falling meteor. Akuta. Akuta is an earth release technique that's created from a land of earth's kinjutsu, which is seemingly inspired by a jutsu that was unearthed by Onoki. It was a technique designed by Onoki to protect the village from attackers while lowering the number of casualties. The Akuta creates a living organism made of clay that can be weaponized. They're able to phase through the earthen ground for travel and drag their enemies with them, as well as extend their limbs. While they have no fear, they have a limited lifespan and intelligence, being capable of obeying instructions and communicating with fabrications. Their masks are their weakness, the destruction of which would lead to their deaths. While deemed to have no will, this was proven false in Akun's existence, a small Akuta who gained affection to Inojin Yamanaka, and even defied its comrades to protect him. Iwagakure housed an underground facility where more Akuta are being mass-produced. It was later destroyed by Konohamaru Sarutobi. All directions shuriken. After using the multiple shadow clone technique, Naruto Uzumaki and his shadow clones simultaneously throw shuriken at a target. Because of how many shuriken there are and how many directions they're thrown from, the target, regardless of how skilled they may be, cannot reasonably dodge all of them. As such, their only real option is to try and shield themselves to minimize the damage. The focus on the shuriken inevitably creates blind spots in the target, which is the actual purpose of this technique. The many Narutos can focus on these blind spots to make additional attacks. Suffering. Using the giant statue as a medium, each of the 5 smaller heads encircling the statue's main head simultaneously release a stream of a different elemental nature attack, all killing ash bones. A certain kill technique, the user hardens their own bones and protrudes them out of the skin, and then fires these weaponized structures from their back or from their palms at the intended target. When these bones pierce a living organism, the bone and target starts to deteriorate at a molecular level, disintegrating the victim and reducing their bodies to nothing more than a pile of ash. Kaguya has used this attack in a variety of ways. Unlike other certain kill techniques, in which the victim can survive if they possess extraordinary endurance, this technique is guaranteed to kill the victim if it connects, and thus truly lives up to the name of certain kill techniques. Allied Shinobi Forces Technique. The Allied Shinobi Forces technique is a combination of many techniques devised by Shikaku Nara, using the unique abilities of the Allied Shinobi Forces to combat the Ten Tails. The Allied Shinobi Forces technique is focused on 3 primary goals: disrupt the opponent's sensory abilities, restrain the Ten Tails, and combat and remove Madara and Obito Uchiha from play. Using Inoichi's telepathic abilities, Shikaku was able to relay the formation to every member of the alliance at once. The first step would be executed by the Kumo Nin, who would use Lightning Release, Lightning Illusion Flash of Lightning Pillar to temporarily blind the opponents, and Storm Release, Laser Circus to create a cloud of dust. Next, Sunanin would use their Wind Release, Air Current Wild Dance to manipulate the dust to further obscure the Uchiha's vision, while Aburame clan members and Kirinin would use their Insect Jamming technique and Hiding in Mist technique to impair their sensory skills. The second step, to restrain the Ten Tails, would see the Iwa Nin create a large sinkhole with their Earth Release Great Moving Earth Core, with their lava users covering the beast with quicklime, mixing it with the Kirinin's water. Konoha's Sarutobi clan would then heat this mixture into concrete, trapping the Ten Tails. With the Ten Tails restrained, the rest of the alliance would rush Madara and Obito using taijutsu, having coordinated with Naruto to exploit their weaknesses. Altering Terrain Technique. Using her diagram scroll, Fuen maps out an area and is then able to physically modify it to her will by drawing in additions to the terrain. Amano Habaya. Kinshiki manifests several bladed weapons and hurls them at his opponent. Amaterasu. Amaterasu is a Mangekyo Sharingan Dojutsu, and the highest level of fire release. Said to represent the material world and light, Amaterasu is the antipode to Tsukiyomi. Amaterasu produces black flames at the focal point of the user's vision. In most situations, this makes Amaterasu impossible to avoid. Once created, the flames will not stop burning until their target is completely incinerated. The flames cannot be extinguished with water, the passage of time, or any other normal methods. Only the user can put the flames out. Said to be the fires from hell and to burn as hot as the sun itself, Amaterasu burns any material, other flames included, until nothing but ash remains. Use of this technique puts a great deal of strain on the user, usually causing their eyes to bleed. While impractical as a defense, Amaterasu can also be sealed. Amaterasu, flame wrapping fire. The manipulated flames of Amaterasu are used to cover the ribs of Susanoo with the flames, surrounding the user with a shield of black fire. In addition to the damage it can inflict, this technique has the psychological effect of causing melee enemies to hesitate in attacking the user of this technique. Ame no Minaka. Using her Rinne Sharingan, Kaguya Otsutsuki replaces the world around her with one of her personal dimensions. Everyone near Kaguya at the time will experience the same change of place. Unlike most space-time ninjutsu, where users move themselves to a destination, Kaguya moves the destination to herself. To relocate such large dimensions requires an immense amount of chakra, so much so that only Kaguya is able to do so. To an onlooker, Kaguya and everyone else will appear to simply vanish from the previous dimension they were in, without even a detectable trace of their chakra left behind. Kaguya does seem to have some control over where she and the others will appear within a dimension, leaving her a strategic option. When first depicted, she shifts high into the air of her lava dimension, leaving her opponents to fall into the molten sea below. When she is being attacked by Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke Uchiha, she shifts to a part of her ice dimension that places Naruto and Sasuke within a glacier, trapping them and thus stopping the attack. Ame no Subaru Boshi no Mikoto. Oh boy, I hope I pronounced that right. By swinging his rod, Urashiki launches a large barrage of chakra hooks at his opponent. Wait, that's it? The name was longer than the description. Here's another one. Ame no Subaru Boshi no Mikoto Gyoko. The user extends their arm outward at the target with an open palm. A purple energy burst is then unleashed in a variety of ways, including a powerful shockwave or a ball of great concussive force. Ame no Subaru Boshi no Mikoto Ryugu. The user extends their arm outward at the target with an open palm. A massive purple ball of energy is then released, followed by an immense demonic purple serpent. Its power is able to compete with the parent and child Rasengan. Ame no Te Jikara. Ame no Te Jikara is a space-time ninjutsu used by Sasuke Uchiha through the power of his Rinnegan, which was entrusted to him by the Sage of Six Paths. Using his left eye, Sasuke can shift himself between spaces, causing anything currently occupying the space he targets to swap places with him. By shifting to another space during combat, Sasuke can avoid his opponent's techniques in an instant, and by swapping places with a weapon, such as his sword, he can leave behind a trap for an approaching enemy. Despite this technique stemming from his Rinnegan, Sasuke does not actually need to be looking at an object in order to swap places with it. By launching an attack and then bringing his opponent to him at the last possible moment, Sasuke can ensure that his techniques hit their mark. Ame no Te Jikara. Chidori. Sasuke throws some lightning-infused kunai at his opponent. When they're about to connect, Sasuke switches places with one of them and delivers a Kagutsuchi-enhanced Chidori. Ame no Te Jikara. Instant. Sasuke attacks his opponent with sword slashes and kicks, uses Bansho Tenin to pull them in closer and stun them with Chidori's Sharp Spear before jumping up and throwing a kunai behind his opponent, which he switches with and slashes them with an electrified slash from his sword. Amplification Summoning Technique. This is a summoning technique that, when applied, allows a summoned creature to multiply when being dealt damage. Pain applied this technique to his dog summon. Upon being struck by a direct attack, the canine could divide into another identical beast and increase its power. The beast can then recombine if needed, with only one body carrying the heads of however many additional beasts were created. Animal Cursed Seal. This is a unique cursed seal applied by Orochimaru, still in its experimental stages and therefore incomplete and unstable. While every other one of Orochimaru's Juinjutsu are directly given by him through a bite, acquisition for this one differs in that the chosen person will be bitten by a snake, which will give them instructions in the form of a tattoo how to form the potion that grants the user a seal. This cursed seal is not the source of its power, rather it serves as a blueprint to create a potion that will grant the drinker power akin to an actual cursed seal. Said potion consists of genetic information of animals which would be combined with the drinker's body to release an explosive amount of power. The ingredients may be found in the Nara clan's laboratory, which is hidden deep within the mountains. The potion can then be formed in a secret room in a mountainous cavern, where a giant tablet matching that of the tattoo is where the liquefied ingredients are placed and mixed. Animal Path. The Animal Path grants a Rinnegan user the ability of summoning various animals and creatures to aid it in battle. These creatures appear to be immortal as they were killed and later summoned again. Worthy of note, summoning creatures through the Animal Path requires no blood sacrifice or hand seals. The Animal Path can also summon people using hand signs, such as the case of Nagato's paths and Konan. As they also display the Rinnegan, the creatures serve as extensions of Nagato. Ankororo Hidden Ninjutsu. Mochi Release. Infinite Dumplings. The user causes the dumplings near them to grow to enormous sizes. The constant growth makes it difficult for attacks to subdue the growing substance. Consumed dumplings will no longer grow. Antlion Ninja Arts. Ephemeral. The user creates 4 firefly-like chakra wings and fires out a powerful energy blast from them. Kagero claims that this technique can only be used once in a lifetime since it consumes so much chakra that the user is left in a near-death state after performing it. During the duration of this technique, the user can also transport themselves instantaneously using a technique that is similar to teleportation. Arhat Fist. This fighting style relies on Jirobo's brute strength to carry out showy and violent physical attacks. By taking careful control of his weight and making complicated body movements, Jirobo is able to use his entire body to break and crush targets. Jirobo's naturally monstrous strength is drastically increased when he activates his cursed seal, to the point that, in its second level, he is able to throw Choji Akimichi's super multi-size technique. Arm Growth Technique. From the shoulders, the user is able to create an extra set of muscular arms in varying size. From these arms, the user can shield himself from ninjutsu, form hand seals, and even provide extra mobility to move about and scale terrain. Armageddon Countdown Clock. After performing the hand seal, a special clock appears on the palm of one's choosing. This clock was developed by Konohagakure, only to be used by the 5 Kage and their most trusted assistants. It serves as a countdown to the Earth's destruction, after Toneri dislodged the moon from its orbit. Armor of Sand. This technique is the second part of Gaara's absolute defense, his shield of sand being the first part. As the name implies, Gaara covers his body in a layer of sand, wearing it like armor. Although it defends him from attacks that bypass his shield of sand, maintaining it consumes a great deal of chakra. Wherever a part of the armor of sand is struck, that section of it crumbles away. The sand itself also weighs Gaara down, slowing him and placing greater strain on his movements. Armor of Sticky Gold. Kidomaru secretes spider sticky gold from his pores like sweat until it fully covers his body. It hardens when it makes contact with the air, becoming a defensive armor as strong as steel. Kidomaru can produce the armor very quickly, forming it even against attacks that take him by surprise. As a special property of the sticky gold, the armor is fortified against chakra, insulating Kidomaru from attacks such as the Gentle Fist. Armor Eater. The user melts pieces of their armor, creating a black liquid that they can freely manipulate. The material itself is durable enough that it isn't easily pierced, and in its liquid form can be used to encase the target and trap their body. Assassination Technique. A sword technique used by root members. Using their signature double-edged tipless tanto, the user attacks their opponent with a series of swift slashes. Asura Attack. With the body modifications of the Asura path, the user can open parts of their body to reveal a cannon that fires a massive blast of chakra with explosive powers strong enough to devastate an entire area. When Nagato used this through his path, he opened the body's head to reveal the chakra cannon. And when he did so himself after his reincarnation, he used an arm-mounted cannon. Attack of the Twin Demons. This technique allows Ukon to inhabit his brother Sakon's body, moving it freely and emerging from Sakon at will. This allows Ukon to help Sakon in combat in ways that Sakon would not have been able to do alone, such as emerging from his back to intercept surprise attacks, or producing hands from his head to attack from angles that he cannot. Until opponents become aware of his presence, they are likely to be confused by Sakon's inexplicable and unpredictable combat ability. Ukon can fully emerge from Sakon's body so that they can work together, but because of how much time he spends in Sakon's body, he isn't used to independent movement and thus tires easily. After integrating Sakon's cells into his body, Kabuto Yakashi is able to use this technique to generate mindless clones of other shinobi, including the Sound 5 and Orochimaru, from his own body, in order to perform their techniques. Ball of Light Technique. The user gathers a ball of concentrated light which hovers above their palm to illuminate their surroundings, similar to a lantern. Ballistic water wheel. After the user swallows a great amount of water to make themselves into a human-sized ball, they tuck their limbs inside their clothes and use chakra to propel themselves into a powerful roll. The added water gives the user extra weight, causing more damage to the opponent and area. This is an excellent technique to use against water release users, as it not only nullifies their attack, but also turns it against them. Bansho Tenin. Bansho Tenin is a technique that manipulates attractive force to pull matter towards the user at will. It has the same 5-second limit as the Shinra Tensei as stated by Choji Akamichi. The area of effect can be localized, so it is possible to selectively attract a target or targets without affecting the object or the structure they're connected to. The ability to manipulate attractive forces with this technique is granted by the Diva Path, much like its counterpart Shinra Tensei. Barrier Method Formation. This is a type of trap ninjutsu where an area is defined using a number of special tags. When the area is entered by an opponent, a barrier is created. The barrier's properties vary depending on the tags used. The Sound 4, for example, use explosive tags, which allows it to serve as a sort of booby trap. To prevent the trap from being noticed, the individual tags are placed in hidden locations, such as the shade of trees. Even if the tags are discovered, actually disarming them is very difficult, for which reason it's generally safer to simply avoid the area. Barrier Releasing Technique. The user places 4 tags marked Release in a diamond formation on a barrier. After performing the hand seals, the technique will break the barrier. It takes time and concentration to break stronger barriers. To increase the strength of this technique, more than one user can perform it in unison. Barrier Shattering Technique. If there's a barrier active, the user can see an enemy territory and shatter the barrier's source from within while his team lends him chakra. Barrier Talisman, Armored Eye. This technique was created by the Hunter Nin of Kirigakure, and according to Ao, they are the only ones who know how to cancel the technique. When a specific part of the user's body is targeted, the technique is automatically activated. The talismans move to cover the specific body part and form a barrier to protect it. Ao wears these talismans as earrings as a precaution should anyone try and target the Byakugan in his right eye socket. These talismans have the kanji for a humble form of to hear on both sides. Barrier, Canopy Method Formation. This technique allows the user to create a spherical detection barrier with the user at the center. At the user's command, the detection barrier can expand, grasping everything in the surroundings. The users can also detect anything that moves inside the barrier space with their own sense. As the users move, the barrier will follow them. Barrier Reclose Technique. A technique used by the shinobi from the Allied Shinobi Forces sealing team. After performing the required hand seals, a barrier is erected to reclose an opening of a pre-existing barrier. Barrier, Toad Gourd Prison. This technique summons a small gourd-shaped toad, called a gourd toad, a unique species of toad indigenous to Mount Myoboku. By using the toad's tongue to drag in whatever it wraps around, this technique is best used to capture and isolate a victim, dragging them into the toad's stomach. Isolated from the outside world by a barrier, the space inside the gourd toad's stomach is far larger than the surface size of the gourd toad itself. The environment inside the toad's stomach is a cavernous chamber, which includes a lake of strong corrosive gastric acid that can dissolve anything that should happen to fall into it. Once trapped inside, an opponent is cut off from any allies and susceptible to attack, and then can easily be defeated. Baryon Mode. Baryon Mode is a unique transformation accessible to Kurama and its Jinchuriki. In this state, Naruto's hair becomes spikier, standing up on its ends with tufts on either side of his head appearing as fox ears. His whisker markings become thick with the upper ones on each side curving below his eyes. The pigments around his eyes become black and stretch up towards his makeshift fox ears, and he takes on Kurama's red slit eyes. The coloring of his clothes turn a slightly dark orange that resembles red, and the front of his cape over his chest gains a black swirl surrounded by 6 lines. Flowing from the back of his cape are 4 slightly dark orange things that resemble red chakra tails, and 5 more at the end of the cape. Each tail has a black line down the center that connects in the middle of the cape as a swirl. In a process similar to nuclear fusion, Naruto and Kurama's chakra are consumed as raw materials to produce a new type of energy. The increase in chakra was enough to shock both Ishiki and Sasuke, with the latter noting it being tremendous. When in use, it dramatically boosts Naruto's reflexes, speed, and power to such extremes that he even surpasses Ishiki's capabilities, allowing him to snatch the Otsutsuki's black rods out of the air before they're visibly enlarged, dodge and effortlessly parry attacks as well. Kurama notes that because all chakra is connected, contact with an opponent will drain their lifespan as well. Beast Human Clone. An imitation human ninja art, this technique transforms a ninken into their Inuzuka partner. By doing this, the Inuzuka gains a copy of themselves that serves the same practical purpose as a shadow clone, but without the shadow clone's steep chakra requirement. Even though they look identical, the ninken, because it's an animal, is likely to give away which of the two it is from how it moves and acts. To counteract this, the Inuzuka typically uses an imitation beast ninja art, causing them to act more feral and thus making it harder to tell them apart. As with any transformation, the ninken will revert to their original form if they're knocked out. Beast Sealing Technique. After creating the necessary seals, the seal formula rises up in the form of multiple chakra chains and binds the target. Bee Bomb Technique. This is a technique in which bees bombard the target with explosions detonated by the explosive tags attached to them. Bee Honey Technique. The user summons a large number of bees that swarm over and sting the opponent. Every time a bee is injured or destroyed, it releases sticky honey on the opponent, which is strong enough to immobilize them. This is particularly effective against opponents who rely on close-range physical attacks, such as practitioners of the Gentle Fist. Beeswax Clone. The user makes a clone of beeswax, and when injured enough, it dissolves back down into wax. Bell Ring Genjutsu. The user utilizes the ringing of bells to produce a sound wave that travels through the eardrum directly into the target's brain. This paralyzes the victim while also causing them to hallucinate, seeing multiple images of the user, which makes it difficult for them to tell the real one from the illusions. The user can then take advantage of this to easily attack their victim. Big Ball Rasengan. The Big Ball Rasengan is a more powerful version of the Rasengan. In the anime, Naruto created the Big Ball Rasengan during his 2.5 years of training with Jiraiya. While training to break out of Genjutsu, Naruto accidentally released his chakra and created a huge Rasengan. It uses the same concept of compressing spinning chakra in one's palm as the original, only increasing the amount of chakra involved. Because there's even more chakra being compressed to a higher density, the ball releases its energy immediately on contact, thus increasing its destructive power beyond Rasengans. When Naruto first starts using the Big Ball Rasengan, he needs a shadow clone to help him form and wield it. He is able to wield it with one hand when his skill with it improves, though he still needs a clone's help with its formation. Big Ball Rasen Shuriken. The Big Ball Rasen Shuriken is a larger variant of the Wind Release Rasen Shuriken. By using 2 shadow clones and his Wind Release nature transformation, Naruto is able to form a Rasengan in the form of a shuriken. The sphere in the technique's center is considerably larger compared to that of the Rasen Shuriken's standard variant. The user can also keep adding chakra to the technique, causing it to expand to enormous proportions. In this enormous version, Rasen Shuriken shines very brightly in the dark. When thrown, it causes a tremendous wind sphere upon detonation that can be seen from several kilometers away. Big Ball Spiraling Serial Zone Spheres. After performing the multiple shadow clone technique, Naruto creates several Big Ball Rasengan. The clones then charge towards the target in a horizontal line formation and slam their Rasengan into the target, causing a massive amount of damage. Binding Snake Glare Spell. The user summons 1 or 2 big snakes which crawl out from one's sleeves and coil around the enemy, capturing them. This is a great technique for capturing someone alive, or for inflicting damage by constriction, and if the situation calls for it, the snakes can bite the victim with their poison fangs. The further addition of the user's killing intent can weaken their target's resolve. Snakes summoned by this technique are on a whole other level in terms of intelligence and strength compared to normal summons. It is said that even shinobi with great skill are unable to escape from this restraint. Black Iron Fist. Shinki creates a large hand out of iron sand that can be manipulated using electromagnetic fields. He can have the hands clamp around himself to protect against attacks, as well as can be used to attack a target from a distance. Black Lightning. Black Lightning is a unique form of lightning release utilized by the 3rd Raikage, who passed it on to Darui alone. Not much is known about it, but as the name suggests, the lightning produced is black in color. Black Receiver. Black receivers are black rods that function as demodulators for high-frequency chakra signals. Users are able to create and transmit their chakra into these receivers for a variety of purposes. Black receivers are formed out of chakra, which takes on a consistency similar to metal. They are durable enough to break steel scalpels, as well as sharp enough to pierce through human bodies with ease. Though durable, the rods can still be destroyed when struck with sufficient force. Once formed, the user can transmit chakra to these receivers from across vast distances, though for best results they must be nearby and at a high elevation. By stabbing an opponent with rods, the user can transmit their chakra into the target's body, disrupting their own chakra and throwing off their movements. The user can fully immobilize the target by stabbing them with multiple rods, as well as prevent them from molding additional chakra by piercing their tenketsu. Chakra receivers are also used to control the 6 paths of pain, 6 reanimated corpses that possess copies of their Rinnegan, granting them a shared field of vision with their creator. Nagato controlled his 6 paths of pain using numerous receivers fashioned into piercings, which were implanted all about their bodies, whereas Obito had a single rod implanted into each body's chest. Among other Rinnegan abilities, the bodies are capable of producing additional rods to serve as weapons. The creatures Nagato summoned through the animal path were also embedded with numerous receivers, suggesting he controlled them in a similar manner. Black receivers disintegrate when their creator is killed or similarly incapacitated, alongside any truth-seeking balls they may possess. Black secret technique, machine one-shot. This is a dance of death that Kankuro performs with his puppets. He first uses Karasu, an attacking puppet, to strike at the target, causing targets to focus their attention on it. As they avoid its attacks, they are unwittingly navigated towards Kuroari, a capturing puppet, which seals them within its body. While they're trapped inside, Karasu's head and 6 limbs are separated from its body, each of which has its own concealed blade. The 7 blades are simultaneously inserted into slots on Kuroari's body, killing the target inside. Black secret technique, machine 2-shot. The enhanced version of Black secret technique, machine 1-shot, which doesn't require Karasu. After making a distraction, Kankuro maneuvers Kuroari behind the target, which then opens up its chest and fires out chakra strings that wrap around his intended target. It then pulls the target into its open abdominal cavity. With the victim trapped, scythe-like blades appear and reap through one side of the puppet to the other, killing the victim inside. Black secret technique, machine triple shot. This technique is simply the Black secret technique machine one-shot technique adapted for 2 targets. Kankuro summons 2 Kuroari puppets to capture the enemies. He then uses Karasu to impale one of the victims while an ally attacks the other. Black secret technique, black iron. Shinki encases his target with iron sand, then proceeds to summon his puppet that bites down on the target, which results in a Fuinjutsu formula that temporarily seals said target's movement, as Shinki completely buries them in a casket of iron sand. Black secret technique, salamander. Kankuro hides Sanshuo underground, and when it's positioned under the opponent, it emerges and captures the target inside of it. Black spider lily. After trapping the target with the shadow sewing technique, the user can then manipulate the shadow to bring them closer to themselves. This technique can be used to draw multiple enemies into the range of Inoichi's mind disturbance dance performance technique. Blade of wind. Baki emits chakra from his fingertips, creating an invisible sword out of wind that he attacks opponents with. Because opponents can't see it, and because of how precise Baki can be with his attacks, there is little opponents can do to defend against this technique. The Blade of Wind is to the Sickle Weasel technique what a longsword is to a kunai. Blast Sword technique, blasting bridle repeating death. Unraveling a large length of the explosive tag roll from the Shibuki, Jinpachi sends it towards his enemy in a circular motion, cutting off any escape route and engulfing them in a widespread explosion. Blaze Release, Honoi Kazuchi. The user first surrounds themselves with a Materasu before proceeding to shape them into spikes, impaling anyone within their immediate vicinity. Blaze Release, Kagutsuchi. Blaze Release Kagutsuchi is a technique which applies shape transformation onto the black flames of a Materasu, allowing the user to manipulate them at will. In Sasuke Uchiha's case, while a Materasu is cast from his left eye, he uses his right eye to manipulate the flames. Blaze Release, Susanoo Kagutsuchi. An application of Kagutsuchi through Susanoo, whereby Sasuke produces weapons made from the orb of black flames held in his Susanoo's secondary right hand. Blaze Release, Yasuka Magatama. Utilizing the orb of black flames in his Susanoo's third hand, the user is able to rapidly produce a number of Magatama projectiles, which are composed entirely of the flames. Upon impact, victims are forcefully thrown off their feet and quickly incinerated. Blinding bubbles technique. Utakata blows bubbles, surrounding the opponent's face with them. Once popped, the bubbles create a puff of red powder that momentarily blinds the opponent. Blinding wide sand formation. Noise. The user spreads sand particles throughout the area, creating a sensing barrier that disrupts enemies' ability to sense targets. However, the technique appears to only work on targets focused on. Blocking technique absorption seal. A highly advanced sealing technique granted by the Pretapath that conjures a see-through barrier around the user's body that is capable of absorbing any chakra, regardless of any shape or nature transformation, and dispersing it within one's body by spinning the chakra within one's body in the opposite direction. As a result, this technique can absorb any ninjutsu-based technique, rendering it ineffective on the user. Blood Dragon Ascension. Blood Dragon Ascension is a technique that involves the ability of manipulating blood, exclusive to the members of the Shinoike clan. Through this ability, the user forms a dragon of blood with 8 heads, similar to the Yamata no Orochi, which all have the ability to regenerate. In addition to the regeneration, the heads of the dragon also have the capacity to release steam after biting a target. The dragon formed is strong enough to restrict the movements of Sasuke Uchiha's Susanoo, and was able to withstand his lightning release, and when Shino used it in conjunction with the iron-rich hot springs of the Valley of Hell in the Land of Hot Water. Blood Transformation Technique. Using the Ketsuryugan's abilities to manipulate a target's blood, the user can expand the blood in the target's body. Doing so will cause the body to morph into a much larger version, effectively disguising the target to be indistinguishable from their true form. By cutting their wrists to expel the extra blood, the target will return to their original state. Bloody Mist Absorption Technique. The user swipes their blood across Samehada, creating a contract. The blade unleashes a thick red mist on the battlefield, gradually and continually absorbing chakra from all opponents' open wounds. Bloody Mist Sword Art. Bone Mutilation. This technique is unique to Kirigakure. Using Hiramekare, the user creates a large amount of light blue chakra needles, which are then sent flying at their opponent. Once impaled, the needles disrupt the victim's chakra pathway system, which will then lead to them slowly dying. Body Coating. This is a unique ability possessed by Black Zetsu, which allows it to take advantage of its malleable body to coat itself over a target. This technique is mainly used to restrict the movement of the target by coating a target's body and forcibly making them do its bidding by directly channeling its will through them. In possession of the target's body, Black Zetsu is also able to use target techniques, Keki Genkai, as well as other abilities that they possess. By using this technique, Black Zetsu is able to perform a variety of feats, including controlling the target and even stabilizing their life force, allowing them to live following a mortally taxing event. Once in contact with a target, they can also absorb the target's chakra and transfer it to others, and even show the target events it has recorded. One drawback of this technique is that if the target has a strong enough will, as in the case of Obito, they can suppress Black Zetsu's influence and take advantage of Black Zetsu being attached to them. Body Elimination Technique. Knowing full well that a shinobi's corpse is essentially a treasure trove of information, this technique is used by Anbu to completely destroy their body if caught or on the verge of death. This technique leaves no trace of the user's body behind whatsoever. Body Flicker Technique. The Body Flicker Technique is a high-speed movement technique. By using it, a ninja can move short to long distances at an almost untraceable speed. To an observer, it appears as if the user has teleported. It's accomplished by using chakra to temporarily vitalize the body and move at extreme speeds. Body Fluid Shedding Technique. A technique that allows Kabuto to liquefy his body and the snakes he controls at will, which he created after examining and altering the Hozuki clan's hydrification technique. By partitioning parts of his body using his own fluids, Kabuto is able to separate portions of himself in a manner reminiscent of a snake shedding its skin. Body Oxidation Technique. While in smoke form, an Iburi can enter a target through their nostrils and mouth. Once inside, every part of their body can be attacked from the inside by the smoke, causing great pain and even death. Body Pathway Derangement. This is a high-level form of medical ninjutsu that only Tsunade has been shown to have mastered. Tsunade creates an electric field by giving her chakra the properties of electricity. When she strikes a target with her hand, the electricity pours into their nervous system and rearranges their body's signals. Ordinarily, the brain sends electric signals to the body to control how it moves, but when under the influence of this technique, these signals will produce any movement other than what the brain intends. When used against most opponents, they will be unable to do something as simple as walking, much less continue fighting. The target can partially overcome this technique if they manage to relearn the connection between their brain and their limbs, as Kabuto Yakushi demonstrates. However, this is not an easy feat and takes a high amount of concentration and intelligence. Body recreation technique. Kabuto uses specially developed snakes to execute the process of recreation and multiplication of another being's cells to create a living clone of them, a process which requires the DNA of the intended target. Clones produced using this method are also able to use any abilities possessed by their original selves, including those that they did not naturally acquire. Body replacement technique. The instant before they are to be struck by an attack, the user replaces them with a block of wood or something similar. Because the attack does hit something, opponents may briefly believe they've successfully struck the user. But this is merely an optical illusion, and opponents will quickly notice what happened. If users are fast enough, they can use this brief lapse in the opponent's attentions to stage a counterattack. In the anime, the replacement log itself has been shown used as an attack, being applied with explosive tags. Alternatively, this is a good opportunity for users to escape. Boil release. Skilled mist technique. The user creates a cloud of mist which they release from their mouth. This mist is highly acidic in nature, capable of melting bodies and even chakra-based defenses and barriers, nullifying them. Even Sasuke Uchiha's Susanoo was affected, despite being considered an absolute defense. This technique has an inherent disadvantage in that its effects are indiscriminate, limiting its usage to areas that do not contain allies. In the event that the mist escapes the containment area, the user can adjust the pH level of the mist to safer levels. Though the mist is corrosive to all around it, the user seems to be immune to it, as Mei used it in an enclosed area without endangering herself. Boil release. Unrivaled strength. Boil release, unrivaled strength, is a ninjutsu fighting style used by Kokuo and its Jinchuriki. The user increases the temperature of chakra to the boiling point, generating large amounts of steam and evaporating any water or ice in direct contact with their body. The pressure resulting from this emitted steam can then be used to increase the force behind physical attacks, giving the user immense strength. The exact amount of force produced is proportional to the quantity of steam released, as the greater the volume of steam utilized, the larger the pressure that can be built up. Upon releasing the pressure, not only is the user's strength enhanced, but their speed is increased as well. Boruto Stream. By utilizing wind release, the user can accelerate their movements, creating an effect similar to tunnel vision. To reach higher speeds, the user gains aid from others to perform the technique on them by propelling them from their feet. This technique can also be used on an ally to increase their speed. Bouncy Bouncy Technique. The Bouncy Bouncy Technique is a variation of the Sexy Technique. Using the skills Naruto had taught them, Konohamaru, Moegi, and Uran transform into 3 beautiful women. All 3 will then bounce to titillate their opponents, and by doing so, the 3 were able to make their victims fall into unconsciousness. Naruto felt the technique still lacked Bonkyuban, which got censored in the English version into Va-Va-Voom. And in a completely different, Bringer of Darkness technique. The user places a hallucinatory darkness on a target's eyesight, causing them to see nothing but black. Because the target cannot see, they are very vulnerable to attack. Although this handicap is dangerous, even to the likes of the 3rd Hokage, it is not insurmountable, as the 3rd is able to sense attacks to try to defend himself and smells his attackers in order to stage a counterattack. When the 3rd finally captures the user and begins removing their soul, the darkness disperses, something that Orochimaru, an onlooker, immediately notices. Bubble Dome. Utakata uses his soap bubble ninjutsu to create a large dome around himself and his allies. This dome is shown to be strong enough to resist large explosions. Bubblegum Ninjutsu. Using chakra as a catalyst, the user manipulates their bubblegum to achieve a variety of effects. This technique can be used as spheres to hover upon, trap an opponent inside, or create various explosions. The impact from even the tiniest sphere is capable of knocking an opponent unconscious. Its adhesive properties also make it suitable for binding targets. Bug Bite. While in her transformed state, Fu attacks the enemy with a powerful glancing blow as a kick, seemingly biting them in the process. Butterfly bullet bombing. When an Akamichi enters butterfly mode, fat in their body is converted into densely concentrated chakra. As the chakra leaks from their backbone, it becomes visible through friction with the shoulder blade, taking the appearance of butterfly wings. The Akamichi can focus the chakra from the wings into their fist, allowing them to use this technique, a single punch to a target with the Akamichi's full weight placed behind it. The Akamichi's natural strength, combined with the sheer amount of gathered chakra, makes this punch devastating, though quite effective against most targets. If the 3 colored pills are used to enter butterfly mode, that in turn makes this technique a double-edged sword. Butterfly mode. The butterfly mode is a heightened transformation of the Akamichi clan. The user can enter this mode by converting the calories of their body into chakra. The chakra, when visible, is shaped into 2 large butterfly wings that can be compressed into smaller wings. The technique uses an enormous amount of chakra. In this form, the user's combat ability is greatly enhanced, allowing the use of the clan's high-level techniques such as butterfly bullet bombing, and the ability to use the chakra wings to create gusts of chakra. There are 2 methods of entering this mode. The first is through the use of the Akamichi's 3 colored pills, which aggressively convert all of the user's calories into chakra. If the pills are not regulated properly, the user may die from rapid weight loss. Practiced users are able to convert their calories into chakra on their own through a process known as calorie control. Because they're in complete control of how much of their body weight is turned into chakra, it poses less of a risk to the user. Bow shadow clone technique. The user throws a bow staff at the enemy and increases their number for an effective attack. The technique does not require the use of additional weapons since the shadow clones are not illusory, but have a real threat of injury. Taking into account the instant appearance of copies of thrown weapons, it will be quite difficult for the enemy to reflect the attack. C0. The highest form of Datara's explosive clay, his ultimate art, C0 is a suicide bomb technique used as a last resort. Datara reveals a mouth on his chest, which is stitched up. After undoing the stitches, Datara feeds a large ball of clay to it. The mouth on his chest has a direct connection to his heart, so a large amount of chakra is built up. It then needs chakra directly from the meridians of the heart and keeps doing it without interruption until the moment of the explosion. His explosive chakra then manifests itself in his veins, flowing through his body. These veins then condense into a sphere that slowly cracks open and detonates, producing a unique explosion that covers a 10-kilometer blast radius. C1. The most basic and versatile form of explosive clay. The user molds their clay into figures, often resembling animals and insects. Depending on the size of the animal, the user can use them as a mount in order to fly. Some even share the abilities of the creatures they are modeled after, such as those resembling birds are capable of flight. This feature makes them excellent for covert operations. The explosive power of these clay creatures is the lowest level of the user's bombs, but nonetheless effective. C2. One of Datara's specialties that requires the use of both of his palm mouths, creating a large dragon. The dragon itself is capable of flight, and while Datara is safely on its back, the dragon can spit out smaller clay figures that attack the opponent like guided missiles. These independent missile-like creatures take the form of a greatly reduced version of the larger dragon that created them. However, despite this decrease in size, they're still relatively larger than a normal person. Each is capable of tracking their intended target and producing a significant explosion proportional to the size upon contact, but as they emerge, they consume a substantial amount of clay from the original dragon, initially extracting it from the creature's tail. C3. Datara's most powerful large-scale bomb that, once activated, becomes an enormous statue that Datara drops on his target from above. Its explosive power was great enough to potentially destroy a large portion of Sunagakure. Once activated, the bomb instantaneously increases its proportions before being subsequently dropped, where it extends both of its arms outwards until they're completely horizontal. C4. A truly fearsome technique created by Datara to counter the Sharingan and the Genjutsu it produces. Datara uses his own mouth instead of the ones on his hands to create a giant doll in his image. When the doll ruptures, it releases a cloud of microscopic bombs that enter the bloodstream of anyone who inhales them. On Datara's command, the microbomb's detonation causes the victims' bodies to disintegrate at the cellular level, literally turning them into dust. Caged Heat Arson Prison. Momoshiki directs pieces of rubble at a target. By tensing his fingers, Momoshiki can heat the rubble remotely. causing it to cling to targets when it contacts them and inflict severe burns. By clenching his fist, he can make the rubble detonate, creating enough force to break through Susanoo. Calling on Tears technique. The user creates a wave of sound by crying that can incapacitate anyone who hears it. Later, after undergoing chakra control training, Namida is able to focus the technique into a single direction, making it safer to use for her allies while also greatly increasing its power and reach. Calorie control. Calorie control is a hijutsu utilized by the Akamichi clan and forms the basis of all their clan techniques. The technique grants the user the ability to freely convert the calories they store in their bodies into chakra to be used in their unique fighting style, which ranges from expanding parts of or their entire body. Akamichi who are less experienced with this technique make use of the 3 colored pills to initiate this process. However, these pills have the adverse effect of converting all the calories in the user's body to chakra. Once perfected, however, the Akamichi no longer need the pills and can regulate how much of their body weight is converted at any given time. Casualty Puppet. Developed by Orochimaru, this technique allows the users to partially absorb a freshly killed corpse, transforming it into an extension of the user's body. Though absorbing allows one to gain access to the target's techniques, the use of Casualty Puppet can warp the user's mind and body, making them highly unstable, with only a great shock snapping them back to their senses. Cat Chakra Claw. This form of chakra flow is unique to the Niniko. It can enhance the striking power of the cat's claws to the point where it can easily cut through metal. Cat Claw. While in her transformed state, Yugito slashes the opponent with powerful and quick swipes, using the extended nails on her hands. Cat Covering. Wasabi puts on her hoodie and unrolls a scroll. After weaving the required hand signs, she is enveloped in a chakra that gives her cat-like features, such as a tail and ears, as well as extended nails and senses of smell and hearing, similar to the Inuzuka clan's 4 legs technique. The technique can select one of many different species of cats, for example Persian, Siamese, or tortoiseshell, granting her a partial cloak of colored chakra with the selected cat's coloring and attributes. Cat Flame Roaring Fire. While transformed as Matatabi, Yugito forms a large fireball from her mouth and shoots it at the target. It's powerful enough to turn a large building into rubble and melt concrete with one shot. Cat Surprise. While enhanced by her cat covering, Wasabi slashes at the ground, kicking up a dust cloud which acts as a smokescreen to set up other attacks by her teammates. Cellular Regeneration Absorption. While in a transformed state, Jugo extends a needle-like protuberance from the palm of his hand, places it into a target while proceeding to quickly absorb their flesh and blood, converting them into his own cells and restoring his stamina and body. He used the technique after being left on the brink of death by the 4th Raikage. This technique also restores him to his normal size, should he have previously reduced his flesh. Cellular Regeneration Ejection. As the originator of Orochimaru's Juinjutsu and the possessor of a unique clan ability, Jugo is able to give his flesh to those who are compatible with said cursed seals, thus healing any injuries they may have received. Because he's transferring his cells to the recipient, Jugo's own body regresses in age, becoming younger in appearance. The effects, however, are temporary and can be reverted using the counterpart for this technique. Certain Kill Ice Spears. A technique in which several large ice spikes emerge from below to impale anything in their vicinity. The rate at which this occurs is so sudden that it's considered to be a certain kill. When used inside an enclosed area like a cottage, it leaves very little room for escape. Chain. Jugo can use his arm to stretch, covering distances much greater than his own body, allowing him to do many things like retrieve his fallen allies or throw his opponents around. Chakra Absorbing Snakes. The user restrains the target with special black snakes that steadily absorb their chakra. The grip of the snakes will increase if the target tries to use their chakra. Chakra Blade. Straight line. First, the user holds the trench knife right side up. Then, after infusing chakra into the knife and further expanding the blade's length, the user slashes horizontally at the opponent's neck to decapitate them. Chakra Disguise. The user first must prepare the technique, causing a complex anachronism that the user creates in one's chakra, changing their perspective to others. Afterwards, the user will be able to change one's chakra signature, make it seem larger, smaller, emanating elsewhere, non-existent, and even able to imitate other people's signatures. Chakra Draining Seal. A fuinjutsu designed to drain chakra. By placing the seal on the target, the chakra drained is transferred to the user. It was used to absorb the remaining remnants of Orochimaru's chakra that was inside Anko Midarashi's cursed seal. Chakra edible creation. By using their Rinnegan, the user is able to fully absorb the bodies of their target by turning them into chakra-filled edibles, which are shaped like chakra fruit. When eaten, they will transform into a demonic-like being and will have access to all of the target's abilities. The user also uses this technique to absorb chakra and transform it into chakra pills to grant immense power and temporary immortality, although one has to keep taking the pills to retain enhanced abilities and immortality. Chakra increased strength. A technique that uses the refined chakra control and concentration required in medical ninjutsu to enhance one's strength to monstrous levels. This is done by storing chakra into one's hands or feet and releasing it onto the target with pinpoint timing. With this strength, the user can decimate the ground or even kill opponents with a single strike. The training for this application is quite arduous, as Tsunade repeatedly came at Sakura with full force to help her learn. Chakra hair trap technique. After cutting her hair, Ino infuses the strands with her chakra to trap anyone that comes into contact with them. Once immobilized, they are an easy target for her to cast her mind-body switch technique. Chakra lock-on. By first getting a fix on the target's chakra signature, the user can scan the area for a particular target. The range of this technique can be greatly expanded by distributing users' chakra over a wide area. Because of the creations of Inojin's super beast imitating drawing are infused with his chakra, he was able to quickly expand his vision and sensing over a large area. Chakra needle. Hinoko shoots a chakra needle from her fingertips that will always hit the target. She can alter the properties of the needle to have different effects on the target once they're hit, such as revitalizing, paralyzing, or killing them. She's able to fire multiple needles from each finger simultaneously and even redirect their trajectory after being fired. Chakra scalpel. This medical technique forms one's chakra into a small sharp blade. This can then be used for highly accurate incisions necessary for surgeries and anatomical dissections. Unlike regular scalpels, the chakra scalpel can make cuts inside the body without actually creating an open wound, limiting the risks of infection. The chakra scalpel can also be used offensively, although it requires great precision to be effective. Because of this requirement, using the chakra scalpel offensively is highly unusual. Chakra shock slash. The user swings the blade and releases a blade-like chakra that has the power to easily cut through hard earth rock. Chakra shockwave slash. The user rapidly slashes the opponent with a sword, creating a strong force of chakra which sends powerful shockwaves in all directions that are capable of cutting through multiple opponents in quick succession. Chakra suppression technique. This technique allows the user to suppress their or their allies' chakra to the point that it becomes completely undetectable. This makes it impossible for sensor-type shinobi to track them via chakra. As noted by Shikamaru Nara, this technique is very useful in allowing one to infiltrate an enemy's ranks. However, due to having one's chakra suppressed, they will be unable to use ninjutsu or genjutsu. Chakra threads, or fuma. This is a murder-suicide technique. The user creates threads of chakra that are used to connect the user's heart to another person's. As long as the two are connected, any internal damage done to one will also be done to the other. This ultimately means that if one person dies, so will the other. Only a kunai wrapped in a special Fuma clan tag can safely cut the threads and free the two. Chakra transfer technique. This technique allows the user to transfer their chakra to a target. The amount of chakra transferred depends solely on the user. This technique was originally created by Hagoromo Otsutsuki in order to connect the spiritual energies of every living person. His intention was for it to be used to build and maintain peace through his religion of Ninshu, but this technique ended up becoming another tool for war when humanity weaponized chakra. This technique is used by many shinobi, and each one of them has been shown to use the technique in different ways. Cherry Blossom Impact. Although it may appear to be a simple case of superhuman strength, this is actually an application of the precise chakra control that's used in medical ninjutsu. The user gathers a dense concentration of chakra in their fist that they release on contact with the target. The resulting damage is enough to seriously damage living targets and will also likely do some collateral damage to the surroundings. Ground that's affected by this jutsu fractures and sends small flower petal-sized particles into the air, hence the name. Chibaku Tensei. Chibaku Tensei is a technique used through the Diva path of the Rinnegan. Users create a black sphere between their hands that they hurl into the sky. When the sphere is activated, it generates powerful attractive force, pulling everything in the vicinity to it until a large satellite is created. Users control how large the satellite becomes. Creating a satellite apparently requires a great deal of chakra, such that Nagato, when attempting to use it through his 6 paths of pain, must first bring the Diva path close to his location so that he can channel his chakra to it more effectively, although it was done in his heavily exhausted state. Chibaku Tensei is most often used to restrain targets, drawing them in during the satellite's creation and trapping them beneath the mounds of rubble. When used to capture tailed beasts, the resulting satellites are known as tailed beast sealing stones. Only Naruto Uzumaki, by entering a near-tailed beast mode, has been known to break free from one. Because of how difficult it is to escape from Chibaku Tensei, the best way to counter it is to destroy the black sphere early on in the formation process. In order to penetrate the initial layers of rubble, users should use their most powerful attacks, such as the tailed beast ball or wind release Rasen Shuriken. Actually aiming at the black spheres is not really necessary, as all attacks will be pulled towards it. When performed by Sasuke Uchiha, he does not use the typical black sphere, instead gathering rubble around each of his immobilized targets. This is similar to the 6 paths Chibaku Tensei. Once satellites are formed, Sasuke is able to move them remotely. Madara Uchiha is also shown creating multiple satellites at a time, each with its own black sphere. Rather than use these satellites to restrain targets, Madara uses them as large projectiles that he drops on his opponents. Chidori. The Chidori is a high concentration of lightning chakra, channeled around the user's hands. The Chidori was created by Kakashi Hatake after he failed to apply his lightning nature to the Rasengan. He intended for the Chidori to be used as a weapon to protect friends and loved ones. To perform, the user first gathers lightning to their hand. The high concentration of electricity produces a sound reminiscent of many birds chirping, hence the name. The lightning chakra has been shown on occasion to damage the user's hand, peeling the skin and causing it to smolder slightly, but this does not appear to actually be debilitating. Once the chakra is gathered, users charge at their target and thrust the Chidori into them, piercing them and typically causing fatal damage. Despite the sound it makes, the rapid speed at which it's used makes it useful for assassinations. The speed at which the Chidori is performed, despite being one of its greatest assets, also represents one of its biggest drawbacks. Users move at their target so fast that it causes a tunnel vision-like effect for them. Because they charge in a straight line, it's easy for opponents to attack them, and because of the tunnel vision, it's difficult for the user to see these attacks, much less react to them. For this reason, most ninja cannot use the Chidori safely. However, a user of the Sharingan can overcome these drawbacks due to its heightened visual perception preventing the tunnel vision from occurring, and its predictive capabilities making it easier for the user to avoid counterattacks. Kakashi's reaction time with the Chidori eventually became so good that he was able to split a bolt of lightning with it, earning his Chidori the name Lightning Cutter. Chidori Current. Chidori Current is a ninjutsu that was developed by Sasuke Uchiha while he was training with Orochimaru. By releasing the Chidori in every direction, an electrical discharge flows from the user's entire body, allowing him to affect multiple enemies. When using this attack on a great number of enemies at once, it can effectively double as an instant defense. The body of the person touched by the Chidori will misinterpret the lightning nature as electrical signals from the nerves, making its muscles contract. This causes the body to involuntarily go stiff, while at the same time receiving damage. This attack can also be channeled through the ground to increase the range of the attack. Chidori Light Sword. Sasuke uses his Chokuto sword to channel an extremely powerful Chidori. It appears to have an even greater range than Chidori Current, making it more effective in battle. It can be noted that this technique is more useful on water because the lightning current produced is carried on the entire surface, making it more difficult for the enemy to avoid it. Chidori Senbon. A variation of the Chidori that uses shape transformation to create countless sharp senbon that are fired at the enemy in quick succession. By increasing the amount of chakra used, the number of senbon increase proportionally. When used in tandem with the Sharingan, it becomes far more effective and deadly, as it allows the user to precisely shoot for targets' vital points. After attaining chakra from the nine-tailed beasts, Sasuke's new Susanoo was able to produce large senbon capable of countering Naruto's Senjutsu enhanced tailed beast balls. Chidori Sharp Spear. The original Chidori gained its power by shaping it into a form sufficient for an electrical discharge and using it together with the user's own thrust. This technique uses shape transformation to form the original Chidori into a spear or blade shape, adapting it for mid-range attacks with a maximum range of about 5 meters. Its increased range means that there's less of a risk to the user. It also has the advantage of being able to be used for surprise attacks and capturing. When the enemy's body is pierced, the user can alter the spear's shape into multiple additional blades, increasing the number of wounds. The blade can also be swung in order to cut things, as well as cause fatal injuries. Sasuke has shown that he can also channel this technique through his Chokuto. Because of Sasuke's mastery in Kenjutsu, this technique can act as a makeshift sword if he loses his sword. After infusing this technique with Six Paths Chakra, Sasuke was able to bisect through the revived Madara in his Jinchuriki form. Chimera Technique. The Chimera Technique is a kinjutsu that was developed by Hiroko, a missing nin of Konohagakure, in order to compensate for his lack of natural special abilities. It was originally meant to combine separate living bodies of organisms into one combined organism, bearing the original characteristics of each, and therefore create a synthetic body. After seeing Kakashi bearing the Sharingan, Hiroko uses the technique to integrate the bodies of others with his own, allowing him to obtain any Kekai Genkai they possess, as well as any other special physical traits, and absorb their chakra. Circular Formation. This is a supplementary maneuver used by Kakashi's Ninken, which involves the hounds standing in a circle. They can also leave one dog in the middle to be the focus of the opponent's attack, while allowing them to perform other techniques, such as the Ninken ninja art Dance of the Dust Cloud. Claw Creation Technique. This technique allows the user to temporarily enhance the normal growth of the nails on both their hands and feet, causing them to grow considerably larger in a short space of time as a result. It also seemingly enhances the durability of the nails, allowing them to even clash against swords without breaking. Clay Clone. A highly convenient technique characteristic of Deidara. Above most other clone techniques, this clone has the double role. It acts as a substitute and a trap for capturing the enemy. Made from clay, this clone can take attacks and capture the enemy by taking them into its own body. The clone shows its natural shape the instant a body goes through. While the clay changes in hardness, the enemy is skillfully immobilized. Cliff Climbing Practice. This is a training method which involves climbing a high or steep cliff using one or two arms. It is meant to improve one's strength and discipline. Cloak of Invisibility Technique. The user covers themselves with a cloak that has a color and pattern matching the nearby surroundings, concealing their presence by seamlessly blending in. The user can then gather intel from their position or wait for an opportunity to stage an ambush on unsuspecting targets. Although skilled ninja can make effective use of this technique, unskilled ninja can be particularly ineffective. During his time as an academy student, Konohamaru Sarutobi routinely uses poor disguises, such as trying to blend in with a fence using a horizontal pattern rather than a vertical one. While only a basic skill, Magire Kakure Mino was able to effectively camouflage himself without the use of a pre-prepared cloth and freely move about, all while blending in with his surroundings. Clone Body Blow. Naruto and his 4 shadow clones work together to deliver a physical attack from a distance. There is no set pattern, steps, or method as to how this is done, instead relying on Naruto's characteristic unpredictability to be devised in the moment. When he uses this against Gaara, 3 shadow clones distract Gaara while the 4th throws Naruto at him, intended to deliver a body blow. Because one of his shadow clones is throwing him, Naruto's body blow ends up being more accurate and damaging than what he could do on his own. Clone Flying Arrow. Naruto creates 2 clones who grab each other while Naruto grabs them both. Naruto starts spinning around to gather sufficient speed and then releases the clones at the target in a shuriken-like fashion to strike them. Clone Great Explosion. The user creates a shadow clone, intending for their opponents to attack the clone at close range. After a certain amount of time has passed, the clone detonates, creating a large explosion. If opponents happen to notice that it's a shadow clone, they may be able to escape in time, for which reason the user should probably try to conceal the clone's identity and purpose as much as possible. Clone Snakes. After implanting Orochimaru's DNA, Kabuto used some of Orochimaru's snakes to develop a large amount of tiny snakes that multiply at a rapid rate and can merge into either a clone of another living being, using a genetic sample, or a larger serpent for combat. They also have incredible regenerative abilities. This not only created a clone Hidan, it also created one of Naruto with Kurama's chakra as well. However, for Hidan, the clone snakes have a short lifespan, with what they form into eventually suffering a cellular breakdown within 48 hours of existence. Clone snakes, serpent technique. Kabuto slams his hand on the surface of water containing his specially developed snakes and emits dark red lightning, which causes the snakes to take on the form of a giant blue snake with a red mouth and no eyes. The snake then rams and pushes the enemy underwater in an attempt to drown them. Kabuto used this technique within the hole, which is known to speed up the recreation process of his snakes. Clone spinning heel drop. After creating several shadow clones, Naruto and his clones launch themselves into the air and begin to somersault. They then come spinning down, slamming their heels onto the opponent's shoulders and head. Clone technique. This is a basic technique that every shinobi can use. In fact, Konohagakure's Ninja Academy prevents students from graduating unless they master this technique, for which reason Naruto Uzumaki failed 3 years in a row. For this technique, users create one or more afterimages of themselves to move alongside them. Unlike most other clone techniques, these afterimages have no substance and thus are incapable of damaging opponents. Because of this, it is only useful for confusing enemies while other attacks are prepared. Clone trap. The clone trap is a technique that uses an earth clone to restrict an opponent's movements. When the opponent is preparing to land a physical blow, the user quickly creates an earth clone to take the hit instead. The earth clone will then revert to mud, which uniquely hardens to restrain the opponent's limb, as the rest of their body is spread with cursed seals. However, it can be overcome with enough willpower. Cloth binding technique. The user uses a giant roll of cloth to tightly wrap up the intended opponent, completely immobilizing them, thus preventing them from moving or using any techniques. The ability itself is versatile, as once completed, additional further seals can be placed on top of the bound victims, preventing them from being summoned while in effect. This technique is used by Tsunogakure ninja. Mere physical contact with the cloth seems to be required to use this technique. Cloud-style crescent moon beheading. The user swings their sword in a single, large, crescent moon-shaped arc, which occurs with such ferocious velocity that the technique can be employed in situations where only a very limited time to react is available. The swing can be used to counter attacks from multiple opponents simultaneously. Cloud-style deception beheading. Using the body replacement technique to feign being attacked, the user takes advantage of their opponent's momentary shock and charges forward with a lateral sword slash. Cloud-style flame beheading. The user first imbues their blade with fire before slashing in the direction of the desired enemy, resulting in the creation of large arcs of intense flame that follow the trajectory of the previous swing. A skilled user of this technique, such as Atsui, is capable of surrounding their immediate area with a circular wall of flames, incinerating multiple targets even if they approach from numerous angles simultaneously. Cloud-style reverse beheading. The user does a powerful spin, generating the momentum needed to slash at any opponents behind them. The user can also utilize this spinning motion to trick an enemy that's in front of them. The enemy is fooled into thinking the user will attack them, but instead the user attacks the targets behind the user. Cocoon. With the help of Chomei, the user creates a cocoon that allows them to suppress chakra absorption from outside sources, providing additional defenses at the same time. The cocoon is highly durable and can only be pierced with a chakra blade, and only when hit in its weak spot, which can be found via the Byakugan. Coercion Sharingan. With a single glance of the Sharingan, this technique forces a nightmarish genjutsu on the victim, overpowering them and bringing them to their knees. Even the usually emotionless Sai was deeply affected by this genjutsu. Coiling around. Manda, being a giant snake, can coil around their prey and strangle it, no matter how big it is. Combination transformation. This is an advanced version of the transformation technique, where 2 or more users combine into one form in order to gain that form's physical abilities. Because there's more than one user involved, some of the prep work can be split between users, such as by having one provide the chakra while another performs the hand seals. Compression Rasengan. By overlapping the Rasengan as it's formed in the dominant hand with the other hand, the user compresses and condenses it to its limit. In this state, it can penetrate targets with little resistance. Even if the impact is reduced by a strong defense to the point of making it non-lethal, it can still knock out powerful opponents. At the same time, its compressed nature can cause severe recoil, greatly straining the user's arm, making it dangerous to use often. Concealed Sand Picture Cat. The Concealed Sand Picture Cat is a contact-type sensory technique. By dispersing chakra-infused sand into a specific area, the user is able to discern the presence of moving bodies that come into direct contact with it. This sensing sand can be spread across a wide terrain, or even float in the air, allowing aerial foes to be detected. Once the sand comes in contact with a person, it will wrap itself around them, rendering even invisible targets visible. Conch Cannon. After Kandachi performs the necessary hand seals, the Conch King fires a number of needle-like projectiles from its body pores. Conch Whip. After Kandachi performs the necessary hand seals, the Conch King uses one or more of its chakra tongues to whip or restrain the opponent. The user can also pump their chakra into the Conch King, increasing the tongue's length and speed. It's shown that repeated hits with the tongue can eventually kill the victim. Confinement Barrier. A type of barrier ninjutsu utilized by the Konoha barrier team. After using themselves as the perimeter for the barrier, a barrier is erected and then takes on a dome shape capable of even trapping Nue. To ensure Konoha's ability to respond to a crisis, Naruto routinely trains Konoha shinobi to use the barrier, usually releasing his own powerful chakra to test their limit. The barrier apparently does not prevent people from entering, as the 7th Hokage was able to enter it without any issues. Similarly, a space-time ninjutsu was able to breach the barrier. Continuous Tailed Beast Balls. The Tailed Beast or transformed Jinchuriki fires multiple uncompressed tailed beast balls in rapid succession at the target. Contract Seal. When the user implements this fuinjutsu on a summoner, it removes any direct control the summoner has over a summoned creature. Close contact appears to be required for the implementation of the seal. Minato Namikaze used this technique to wrest a Sharingan-controlled Kurama from Tobi's control. Though the contract seal removes the summoner's ability to control its summon, it does not give the user of the fuinjutsu the ability to control the summon in turn. Doing this, however, seems to negate the time limit that a controlled summoning creature is in the present place. Coral Palm. While in his transformed state, Yagura strikes the opponent with a powerful blow, causing a large formation of coral to quickly grow from the initial point of contact. This then rapidly solidifies and restricts the enemy's mobility, as the substance continues to grow, eventually covering their entire body. Corpse Clone Technique. The Corpse Clone Technique is a kinjutsu that allows the user to assume the identity of their victims. By opening their mouth wide, akin to a snake, the user will consume the target's living brain, after which the user gains the victim's memories, abilities, and can take on their physical likeness perfectly. This technique is perfect for infiltration and spying, leaving targets none the wiser as the user becomes a perfect replica. In the anime, the changes are implied to not require upkeep once performed, as Shoujoji was able to keep impersonating Tsukio at Hozuki Castle, despite being branded with Fire Release Heavenly Prison, which prevents one from using chakra. Crane Wing Formation. After jumping into the air, the ninken attack the enemy from a circular formation reminiscent of a crane's wings. After surrounding the opponents, the hounds then bite the target's limbs, rendering them unable to react as they plummet to the ground. Crane Wing Formation, 8 Gates. The Crane Wing Formation is a collaboration technique used by 7 members of the Suicide Corps after activating the 6th gate. The users line up side by side and enter the 6th gate. Upon doing so, they leap at their opponent, able to reach high up into the sky. The aura surrounding the users as a collective gives off the appearance of a crane's wings spread out, hence the name. When enclosing it on a target, the technique acts like a powerful blade, capable of destroying most of a gigantic meteorite. Creation of All Things Technique. The Creation of All Things technique was a technique possessed by Hagoromo Otsutsuki that allowed him to turn fantasy into reality. The process he used is explained to have initially involved the administration of imagination, and the spiritual energy which forms the basis of yin chakra to create physical forms from nothingness. Then, through the application of vitality and the physical energy that forms the basis of yang chakra, he would breathe life into the resulting creations. The tailed beasts were created from the Ten Tails chakra with this technique. In the anime, when using this ability, the beings created are minuscule and surrounded by a Magatama-like green energy pod. Creation Rebirth. The Creation Rebirth was invented by Tsunade with the resolution to protect the lives of her comrades. By releasing a large amount of chakra at once, the body's cell division is forcibly stimulated. Whenever the body's tissues are damaged or an organ is destroyed, the injury will instantly heal regardless of the severity. So long as the Creation Rebirth remains active, the user cannot die, earning it recognition as the pinnacle of medical ninjutsu and the ultimate regeneration technique. Creation Rebirth does not repair the old cells, instead hastening the creation of new ones through division. Because a body's cells can only split a certain number of times, the user shortens their natural lifespan whenever this technique is used. Crimson Earth. Using the large mechanical drill on his right arm, Toki fires it in the direction he desires with such force that it can literally change the geography of the affected area. He used this technique to create a fork in the river, which he used as a choke point where he can attack his opponents. Crimson Mist Barrier Technique. By summoning a thick wall of mist, the user can impair sight for all within it. It also masks any sound from being heard outside of the mist. Crow Clone Technique. This is a clone technique utilized by Itachi Uchiha, a technique that produces a clone by projecting one's own chakra towards dozens of crows. Because it uses crows as a medium, it requires less chakra than the normal shadow clone technique, while still being able to perform techniques. The dozens of crows then come together to form the body of a clone. The same crows of the dispersed clone can regroup and form a new clone immediately. When the chakra projected by the user is severed, the crows disperse, though the user is still able to continue to speak through it. When the crow clone is defeated, the crows can regroup to form a new clone immediately, or failing that, can be used to blind the opponent, leaving them open to a counterattack. Crystal Armor. This technique allows Guren to cover her skin with a thin sheet of pink crystal that improves her defense against physical attacks. This armor can also aid her to perform stronger physical attacks. The crystal is transparent and can only be noticed by light reflecting off it. Crystal Release, Crimson Fruit. Guren creates a dome of pink crystal to surround a target. It's highly durable from both external and internal attacks and can be used to either protect or trap a target. Crystal Release, Crystal Encampment Wall. Guren sends out a wave of chakra, which then turns into an almost impenetrable red crystal wall, given the fact that it repairs itself when damaged. Only Shino's enhanced insects were capable of weakening the wall enough for Kakashi to finally destroy it with his lightning cutter. Crystal Release, Crystal Imprisonment Wave. A technique similar to Guren's Crystal Release, Crystal Pentagonal Prison, where she instead sends a wave of pink crystal particles through the air to encase them in crystal. Crystal Release, Crystal Lance. This technique allows Guren to create a large and sharp blue spear-like crystal surrounding her forearm, which she can then use to impale her target. Crystal Release, Crystal Needles. Guren creates long, sharp pink crystals that shoot at the target at extremely high speeds with pinpoint accuracy. She can also create smaller versions of pink crystals to trap her targets. Crystal Release, Crystal Pentagonal Prison. Guren completely encases her opponents in pink crystal using the surface beneath them. When shattered, the bodies of the victims disintegrate along with the crystal particles. It's shown through examination with Shino's Kikaichu that those affected by the technique are covered in a frostbite-like pattern. Crystal Release, Crystal Wheel. Guren creates a ring-shaped wheel out of pink crystal and has it circle around her, allowing her to keep above water and reach high speeds. Crystal Release, Growing Crystal Thorns. Guren creates pink thorn-like crystals that she can manipulate to continuously grow towards her target's direction. Crystal Release, Jade Crystal Blade. Guren materializes a blue crystal blade on her forearm to engage in combat. It has proven to be durable enough to block shuriken and kunai. If need be, she can create a crystal blade on each forearm. Crystal Release, Jade Crystal Hexagonal Pillars. By creating 5 large pink crystalline pillars around the user, this technique can be used to enhance the potency of other techniques. It was used to greatly amplify Yukimaru's ability to the point where he could summon the Three Tails, although with assistance from Kabuto's medication. Crystal Release, Jade Crystal Labyrinth Technique. First, Guren creates a large number of red crystal flowers. Then she can grow these flowers into a gigantic labyrinth consisting of red crystals. Enemies trapped inside will mostly be lost because of the fact that the red crystals reflect their personal image, as well as generating mirror images of the routes, paths, and details within the labyrinth, confusing and intimidating them. It is even capable of confusing the Byakugan because of its reflective nature. Because of the crystal's stable molecular structure, a simple attack focused at one point is rendered useless, and its wide surface will disperse the force of wide-range attacks, reducing their effectiveness. To overcome this technique, an attack that has impact force both wide and powerful is required to smash through it. Crystal Release, Jade Crystal Mirror. Guren outstretches her arms in a position where her hands are open, and materializes a pink chakra-like energy into a large jade-green mirror in the shape of a snowflake, which she can then use to perform the Jade Crystal Clone Technique. Crystal Release, Jade Crystal Prison Technique. This technique, which seems to be Crystal Release Crystal Pentagonal Prison on a smaller scale, or a minor version of it, the technique allows Guren to completely encase a single target in pink crystal. If the crystal is shattered, the victim disintegrates along with the crystal particles. However, Hinata was able to surround her body with chakra before she was completely encased, thereby avoiding the disintegration effect. Therefore, this jutsu has no effect on chakra. Crystal Release, Jade Crystal Wall 8th Formation. This technique allows Guren to encase a large area in red crystal, thus crystallizing everything within it. This technique was first used in Guren's battle with the three-tailed beast, but to no avail as it broke out shortly after. Crystal Release, Shuriken Wild Dance. Guren surrounds herself in pink crystal particles, condensing them into numerous shuriken that can constantly revolve around her as she launches them at high speeds. Crystal Release, String of Glory. After using the pressure points of harm and death technique, Guren encases herself in a prism of transparent blue crystal. The prism can hover in the air, but seems to be immobile. However, the prism protects her from almost any attack. In addition, this technique allows her to attack by focusing her chakra into powerful heat blasts launched through the prism's tip. Crystal Release, Tearing Crystal Falling Dragon. The user crystallizes a material in the area, and then turns it into a pink Chinese-like dragon, with several pink horns and jade-green irises. It can be used as a means to travel or to attack a target. Several dragons also can be made and manipulated at once. Crystal Release, the God's Crossings Technique. Guren places her hand on a surface, creating a long stream of sharp blue crystals to bind and pierce a target. Crystal, Giant Hexagonal Shuriken. Guren creates a giant jade-green crystal shuriken resembling a snowflake and throws it at the enemy. Despite its sharpness, it wasn't able to penetrate the three-tails shell. Crystal, Hexagonal Shuriken Wild Dance. Guren creates a pink crystal shuriken in the shape of a snowflake to launch at the target. The user can make them spin to increase their lethal power, and can break them off into multiple shards to catch an opponent off guard. Curse Mandala. After performing various hand seals, the user is able to perform an ancient ninja art that is only known to a few generations of the Fuma clan. The technique traps the victim in a pyramid-like chakra cage which will slowly constrict as the user moves his hands closer together. Anyone caught in the mandala as it constricts will be crushed. The user of this technique must maintain a triangle-shaped hand seal at all times to maintain the cage. Should the user's will falter, or the entrapped opponent happen to be strong enough, the cage can be broken. When the cage breaks, a massive explosion of energy follows, destroying a wide area and harming the user. The prisoner, however, remains safe at the center of the blast. Curse Technique, Body Controlling Manipulated Blood. A jujutsu technique which requires both the user and their opponent to be standing within a Jashin symbol, as well as obtaining the victim's blood and using it on their opponent. Afterwards, the puppet and victim become connected, allowing any damage done to the puppet to be shared with the connected individual. Even if the victim dies, the connection isn't severed, leaving their corpse to eternally be a puppet. Curse Technique, Death Controlling Possessed Blood. The Curse Technique, Death Controlling Possessed Blood, is the exclusive jujutsu technique of Hidan and his primary method of killing opponents under Jashinism. The technique requires two special conditions. One being that Hidan must have drawn an insignia of Jashin on the ground in his own blood, to which he must remain in the center of for the technique to function properly. The other being for him to acquire and ingest the blood of his intended victim. Once ingested, his skin then turns black with white markings, which makes him look like a skeleton, a symbol of absolute death. This serves as the link between him and his victim. Once his sacrificial ritual takes place, the victim is linked with Hidan until he either steps out or is forced out of the circle. Any kind of injury that Hidan inflicts upon himself, or any injury that's inflicted upon him, is reciprocated upon his target, be it a mere scratch to a pierce of the heart. If Hidan is forced to step out of the circle, the link is temporarily broken and the victim is set free, but only as long as Hidan has stepped outside of the circle's reach. Basically, this technique makes Hidan a living voodoo doll. Cursed Sand Puppet Technique. With the help of pre-existing sand, the user creates a great number of sentient sand puppets and sends them to fight the opponent. The puppets, however, aren't that sturdy and can be easily taken out with one blow. Cursed Seal of Earth. The Cursed Seal of Earth is one of the strongest of Orochimaru's cursed seals, the other being its counterpart, the Cursed Seal of Heaven. This cursed seal is particularly strong even amongst the other already powerful cursed seals, with Kimimaro being the only known user, and with the Cursed Seal of Heaven standing as its only equal. Like all cursed seals, Kimimaro receives increased chakra levels, physical capabilities, and his ninjutsu skills become more effective when the seal is active. Cursed Seal of Heaven. The Cursed Seal of Heaven is one of the strongest of Orochimaru's cursed seals, the other being its counterpart, the Cursed Seal of Earth. Like all cursed seals, the user receives increased chakra levels and physical capabilities while the seal is active, to the point where with the second level, Sasuke was equal in power to Naruto's one-tailed form when he first used it. The seal was applied on the left side of the back of both Sasuke and Anko's necks. Anko received her cursed seal when she was a student of Orochimaru. She, along with 9 others, were the first people to receive a cursed seal. She was the only one to survive the application, establishing the 1 in 10 success rate for the procedure. Because she lacked the will to use it, her seal receded, and in the anime, Orochimaru wiped her memory. Orochimaru was able to briefly reactivate the seal when they fought in the Forest of Death, before the 3rd Hokage sealed it off again. It was fully removed when Sasuke used it as a medium to revive Orochimaru's consciousness and body, via the evil releasing method. Orochimaru branded Sasuke with the cursed seal in the 2nd phase of the Chunin exams, which took place in the Forest of Death. Orochimaru intended to have the seal corrode Sasuke's mind so he could become his next body. Kakashi Hatake used the evil sealing method to try and prevent this, but its effectiveness relied on Sasuke's choosing not to use his cursed seal. Sasuke ultimately chose to advance his seal to its 2nd level, and went to Orochimaru with the help of the Sound 4. When Sasuke activated the 2nd level of the seal, his skin turned dark gray, and his hair grew and turned dark blue. His eyes also turned dark gray. Additionally, he grew webbed claw-shaped wings from his back, which he could use to fly and glide, and a dark star-shaped mark appeared across the bridge of his nose. Should any limbs be lost, Sasuke is able to replace them with snakes. During Sasuke's battle with Itachi Uchiha, he lost the cursed seal, along with Orochimaru, having earlier been absorbed into Sasuke's body, as they were removed with the Sword of Tatsuka. According to Kabuto, the seal itself contains Orochimaru's chakra, which Kabuto used in order to improve the binding power of summoning impure world reincarnation. In fact, when Orochimaru was defeated, his consciousness remained split amongst the cursed seals, and Sasuke used that along with a piece of Kabuto's modified flesh to bring the former back to his original state and mind. Cursed Tongue Eradication Seal. This cursed seal is given to all members of the Anbu subgroup Root by Danzo Shimura, to ensure that no information about him or the organization fell into the wrong hands. After Danzo died, the seals disappeared from all Root members. When the wearer of this cursed seal speaks about anything incriminating related to Danzo or Root, their entire body will be paralyzed, taking away their ability to speak or move. It is applied to the tongue and takes the shape of 3 solid lines and 2 broken lines from the back of the tongue to the tip. Daikokuten. Daikokuten is a technique available to Ishiki Otsutsuki through his unspecified dojutsu. Through its use, anything he has previously shrunk with Sukuna Hikona can be stored within a dimension where time does not flow, allowing for them to remain in pristine condition and instantaneously retrievable at will. The objects retrieved are manifested with such speed that they can catch attentive opponents, such as Sharingan-wielding Sasuke Uchiha and Six-Path Sage Mode-empowered Naruto Uzumaki off guard, while inflicting serious bodily harm on them. Dance of the Camellia. With his Shiko Tsumiyaku, Kimimaro pulls from his body a bone, such as an upper arm bone, that he's modified to use as a sword. With it, he repeatedly stabs at his opponent, doing so rapidly enough to create the appearance of afterimages. Each stab is directed at a slightly different part of the target from a slightly different angle and with slightly different regularity, making it difficult to predict each strike. Although targets may be able to dodge Kimimaro's attacks for a time, they will eventually be unable to keep up with the constant and chaotic strikes, giving Kimimaro the opening he needs to finally stab and kill them. Dance of the Clematis. Flower. The user concentrates all their Shikotsumyaku powers into the creation of a single bone weapon, which is made as hard as possible with a considerable amount of chakra. Because of the weapon's large size as well as the sheer density of the compressed bone, Kimimaro must enter the second level of his cursed seal to be able to handle it. This technique was unable to break through ultimately hard absolute defense, Shield of Shukaku, against which it shattered into pieces. Dance of the Clematis. Vine. When Kimimaro enters the second level of his cursed seal, his spine grows longer to give him a tail-like appendage. For this technique, Kimimaro removes that spine to use as a weapon. Cartilage between the individual vertebrae make the spine flexible for use as a whip, and the cartilage can be stretched further to increase the whip's range. The vertebrae are also modified to have spikes, making it easier for them to hook into targets. When this spine whip is wrapped around a target, it will hold them in place, making them easier to kill with Dance of the Clematis Flower. Dance of the Crescent Moon. The user and two of their shadow clones attack a target from different directions with a bladed weapon. As they move towards their target, the attackers usually leap through the air in a formation reminiscent of the crescent moon, hence the name. Because all three attacks are meant to simultaneously come from a blind spot, targets can't reasonably defend against all of them. Moreover, because of the power behind the strikes, if even one of them lands successfully, the target is likely to be fatally wounded. Dance of the Larch. When Kimimaro is about to be attacked with taijutsu, he sprouts sharp bones from all parts of his body, ideally causing the attacker to skewer themselves. The stronger and faster the attack, the greater the damage that will be done to the attacker. If the attacker is able to avoid taking any significant damage, Kimimaro can keep the bones sticking from his body, thereby discouraging any additional attacks. If the opponent attacks anyway, the bones can be used to absorb the blow and then capture the attacking arm or leg, leaving them at Kimimaro's mercy. Dance of the Seedling Fern. While underground, Kimimaro produces as many as 10,000 blades of bone that sprout from the earth. Because of how quickly the bones appear from the ground, how wide an area they cover, and how high into the air they extend, this technique can do extensive amounts of damage, killing indiscriminately. If any of his targets should somehow avoid this technique, Kimimaro, by activating the second level of his cursed seal, is able to merge with the bone blades. He can then appear from any of them, ideally one at the target's blind spot, so that he can launch a finishing attack. After acquiring Kimimaro's DNA, Kabuto Yakushi is able to use this technique through his strange transmission distant shadow technique. He produces a clone of Kimimaro, which places its hands on the ground to create these sprouting bone blades. Dance of the Shikigami. By converting her chakra into paper, Konan transforms her body and clothing into numerous sheets of paper. The initial creation and dispersal of the paper can mesmerize opponents. Konan then controls and shapes the paper into various things, such as spears for attack, origami butterflies for spying, and clones for supplementary purposes. She can create paper wings on her back to fly, though she can hover without them, and use them to shoot paper in rapid succession. She can also wrap her target in paper, restricting their movements and asphyxiating them. Dance of the Willow. Kimimaro produces long, hardened bones from his body that can easily puncture opponents, dealing serious damage. There is no set way with which the bones are used for this dance. Tono Sho likens his movements to the branches of a willow, swaying in the wind. In keeping with this, Kimimaro's movements while using this technique are mostly evasive, and his attacks are primary parries and counters. Kimimaro usually uses bones sprouted from the palms of his hands, but if those aren't enough, he can produce additional bones from his knees, elbows, and shoulders, so that he can attack multiple targets at once. Dark Cloud. Boro is able to unleash a dark mist that eats away at the bodies of those exposed to it, either through physical contact or by inhaling, sapping their strength and gradually rendering them paralyzed. The mist serves as an effective deterrent to keep opponents from approaching, and will quickly return to its position if it was cleared through the use of wind release techniques. Additionally, since the mist is a form of physical matter rather than a chakra-based substance, it cannot be absorbed by Kama, as the dark mist's true nature is that of a fast-acting virus created by scientific ninja tools. Boro has antibodies in his body that grant him immunity to the virus, and by acquiring his blood, it is possible to harvest and culture these antibodies in order to inject them into others. The mist can also be mixed with gunpowder, which can be detonated with the slightest spark. Dark Sealing Method. In order to help an individual advance their curse seal to its second level, the Sound Four use the Four Black Fogs formation. After the individual and the black fogs have been placed within a confined space, such as a coffin, Sakon uses the Dark Sealing Method. He places 5 talismans, each inscribed with sealing formulas written in his blood, around the coffin's rim. This creates a barrier around the coffin, keeping the black fogs contained until the cursed seal's advancement has completed. Daytime Tiger. The Daytime Tiger is an incredibly fast punch, and contrary to its appearance, purely taijutsu in nature. After opening the 7th of the 8 gates, the user places a palm facing forward in front of their face with one hand, and then taps it with his other hand, formed into a fist, which creates a massive amount of air pressure. Next, the user forms a unique hand seal resembling a tiger, launches the air pressure at the opponent in the shape of one by leaving a gigantic tiger-shaped impression into the initially built-up air pressure with the hand seal. The air pressure will condense as it's moving and be focused onto a single point. The technique then explodes on command, releasing the built-up air pressure in an instant. A massive explosion, one that dwarfs Island Turtle, is created, which can be felt a significant distance away. Dead Demon Consuming Seal. The Dead Demon Consuming Seal is a sealing technique developed by the Uzumaki clan to call upon the power of the Shinigami. Its very existence is so secret that even Orochimaru knew nothing about it. Dead Soul Technique. The user performs surgery on a corpse to temporarily make its heart beat again. The user then uses their chakra to both control the body movements and to hide all signs of the surgery, creating the appearance that the body is a live person. Kabuto Yakashi takes the extra step of erasing the body's odor so that others won't notice its smell. Kabuto likes to use the corpses he controls as body doubles, altering their faces with plastic surgery so that they look like him. Kabuto himself stays nearby, silencing his heartbeat so that he passes as a corpse. Kabuto is only ever shown controlling one corpse at a time, which becomes inert once he moves far enough away. Decapitating Airwaves. Zaku Abumi uses his chakra to generate energy within his elbows, which he emits from a hole in his palm using a tube implanted in his forearm. The energy is a mixture of sound waves and air waves, with the ratio between the two differing depending on what Zaku intends to use the technique for. For example, 100% air waves and 0% sound waves is enough to shatter stone. In other uses, it can repel incoming projectiles, soften the ground for use as a cushion, and knock over people. Its power weakens sharply over distances. Zaku can use this technique with one hand against a single target or with both hands to use against separate targets. It can be used with both hands towards a single purpose, which in certain cases qualifies as extreme decapitating airwaves. Despite how useful this technique is and how easy it is for Zaku to perform, the tubes in his arms represent a serious vulnerability. If the openings of the tubes are blocked when Zaku tries to use it, the energy won't be able to get out and will burst from his elbows, severing them from his body. Deep Crimson Spiral. Unleashing a Rasengan from his Rinnegan, Momoshiki amplifies the chakra, giving it a red color, and to increase its size to a giant scale, which rivals Boruto Uzumaki's own amplified Rasengan. Delicate Illness Extraction Technique. When a person has been afflicted by a pathogen or toxin, this medical ninjutsu can be used to draw out the agent and heal the damage. The cause of the illness is first determined by perceiving disturbances in the patient's chakra. Then, using a chakra scalpel, an incision is made near the affected part. Using their chakra, the medical nin pushes a large volume of medicinal fluid through the incision. The fluid then draws the poison out of the affected parts and serves as a medium through which the poison is suspended and then forced out of the person's body. This technique thus removes the poison while simultaneously repairing the damage caused by it. The technique only draws out most of the poison, not all of it, so a subject can still potentially be in danger, although not always immediate. To fully treat the subject, an antidote is needed. After the agent is drawn out, it can be used to create an antidote or medicine after it's been analyzed. Demonic Flute, illusory warriors manipulating melody. Tayuya plays her demonic flute in order to control the 3 Doki. The tune she plays determines their overall behavior, as well as how each individual Doki moves, attacks, and works with each other. In order to prevent opponents from analyzing which tune produces which action, Tayuya embeds the tunes within a complicated melody. To be able to do this requires a good ear for music and skill with the flute. Although the music itself can't be deciphered, careful study can allow opponents to read Tayuya's finger configurations, giving them a way to predict what the Doki will do. Demonic Flute, Phantom Sound Chains. This genjutsu is performed with a flute. Because it's transmitted via sound, it is effective against long ranges, working even on those whose location the user does not know. Whoever hears the flute is subjected to an illusion of their limbs being bound, preventing them from being able to move. They're also subjected to morbid visions, weakening them mentally until they finally lose consciousness. When Tayuya performs this with her demonic flute against Shikamaru Nara, Shikamaru envisions himself on a barren landscape strewn with partial skeletons, his arms and legs restrained by ropes suspended from the ceiling. After acquiring Tayuya's DNA, Kabuto Yakashi is able to use this technique through his strange transmission distant shadow technique. After it's performed with a flute made of bone, Sasuke and Itachi Uchiha envision themselves on a vast floor of skulls, from which emerge snakes that coil around their arms and torso. Demonic Illusion, False Surroundings Technique. This technique layers an illusion over a location, causing it to look like a different location. Because of how wide an area the illusion can be placed over, that in turn makes it easy to trick others. Any who enter the area will be affected by the illusion and see the false location. But to create an illusion on such a large scale and to potentially deceive so many people raises the chances that the trick will be discovered by someone who is familiar with genjutsu. Demonic Illusion, Hell Viewing Technique. This technique subjects targets to visions of their greatest fear, regardless of whether or not they're aware that they're afraid of it. This fear can be something that the target is actually scared of, or merely the one image they least want to see. When Kakashi Hatake uses this technique on Sakura Haruno, he makes eye contact with her as he activates it. Kakashi then seems to disappear into a swirl of tree leaves, leaving behind what Sakura fears, a dying Sasuke Uchiha. Being presented with such a gruesome image, one that, at the time, Sakura believed to be real, gives her enough of a shock that she faints. Demonic Illusion, Mirage Crow. This genjutsu traps a victim in a powerful illusion with no necessary eye contact, similar to Ephemeral. However, direct eye contact can still be applied when using this technique. When used, the genjutsu projects a torrent of crows, leaving the opponent at the user's mercy. Demonic Illusion, Mirror Heaven and Earth Change. When a genjutsu is used on them, the user quickly decrypts the genjutsu with their Sharingan to understand how it works. They then perform an identical genjutsu on their attacker, causing a genjutsu reversal. Since most genjutsu are used to confuse victims, this reverse genjutsu deals predominantly mental damage. The effectiveness of the reversed genjutsu relies on how strong this technique's user is relative to their attacker, and whether or not the attacker has any Kekai Genkai of their own. Demonic Illusion, Shackling Stakes Technique. Firstly, this technique requires the use of Genjutsu Sharingan. The opponent is caught in the illusory world created by the user, and the victim is tormented with the sensation of having spikes driven through them, taking away their body's freedom. At the same time, the physical pain accompanying the illusion reveals that the greatest use this technique has is torture. Demonic Illusion, Steaming Multi-Storied Building. A wide-range genjutsu, whereby Gengetsu, in conjunction with his summon, is able to manifest realistic mirages by reflecting the light using the water vapor, which is being spouted by the clam. As it is impossible for observers to distinguish from the real thing through normal methods, this property makes the technique ideal for concealing the actual location of either individual, resulting in confusion amongst the opposition as their attacks are rendered ineffective as they attempt to ascertain the pair's true positions. However, in order to maintain the illusions, the clam must continually exude the mist from its siphons throughout the duration of the technique. According to Gengetsu, the only method to end this technique is to defeat the real clam, but as the creature itself remains camouflaged within the mirage, this is no easy task, even if the summoner is providing beneficial advice. While the technique is in effect, both Gengetsu and the clam cannot be sensed through traditional means, with the exception of contact-type methods. Demonic Illusion, Toad Confrontation Chant. This is a sound-based genjutsu sung by toads, their most powerful genjutsu. The song's sheet music has been passed down through generations of Mount Myoboku, but due to the complexity of lyrics and melodies, only the two great sage toads have ever been able to successfully perform it. It takes some preparation time for the two to establish the correct harmony, which in the meantime will alert opponents to their location and to what they're doing. They rely on allies to fend off or distract opponents until they're ready. Once the toads have harmonized and the song is started, all opponents, regardless of number or skill, who hear it, fall under the genjutsu's influence. Within the illusions, victims are surrounded by 4 toad samurai who seal them within a barrier. The victim's mind and body remains trapped until either the user releases them or their real body is killed. For the latter case, Mount Myoboku's secret stone swords are typically used, driven into the victim's heart. After the song is finished, the toads' throats are left strained and require rest. Demonic Illusion, Tree Binding Death. The target experiences the illusion of a tree coiling around them, preventing them from moving. Because targets are immobile, yet still conscious, this technique is a useful way to perform interrogations. Alternatively, users can simply kill the immobilized targets. When Kurenai Yuhi attempts to do this, she emerges from the tree above the target to cut their throat. This technique has been passed down through the generations among Konohagakure's villagers. According to Konoha Shinden, it was originally created during the time of Hashirama Senju, intended to make victims believe they were fighting Hashirama himself and his wood release. Demonic Mirroring Ice Crystals. This technique is performed with the cursed Kekkei Genkai of the Yuki clan. Haku creates several large mirrors out of ice, which he then surrounds a target with. By entering one of these mirrors, Haku's reflection will appear in all of them. Haku can travel between these mirrors near instantaneously, giving the appearance that he occupies all of them simultaneously. As such, any attacks he makes from these mirrors, usually rapid volleys of thrown senbon, can overwhelm opponents, seemingly coming from every mirror at once. Using the technique requires a great deal of chakra from Haku, meaning he cannot use it indefinitely. Sasuke Uchiha, with his undeveloped Sharingan, becomes able to follow his movements, and with enough time could even attack Haku. Naruto Uzumaki, after entering an initial Jinchuriki form, is able to dodge Haku as well. These exceptions aside, the demonic mirroring ice crystals is still a formidable technique. Most victims will be unable to do anything against Haku's attacks, as they're so fast and come from so many directions at once that it's nearly impossible to see all of them. If they should try to attack Haku when he's within a mirror, he can simply move to another mirror before they're even noticed. Demonic Statue Chains. Through the outer path, the user is able to manifest chakra chains, which bind anyone they touch. According to Obito, this binding power is far greater than that of Nagato's outer path. The chains possess a cursed seal that suppresses the power of tailed beasts, and also cause a great deal of pain to their victims. Obito was able to generate these chains through the use of black receivers. He implanted a single receiver into each of his 6 paths of pain, which were made into temporary Jinchuriki. By manifesting chains from the Jinchuriki's receivers and connecting them to his hand, he was able to bind and suppress the tailed beasts inside them in the event that they resisted his control. When Naruto Uzumaki was trapped inside the Four Tails' mouth, Obito attempted to capture him by dragging the beast inside his own body using these chains. The beasts were also bound by chains within their consciousness. When the receivers were removed from their Jinchuriki's bodies, these chains were replaced by a single larger chain, connecting directly to the demonic statue of the outer path, permitting Obito to quickly reseal them into the statue. When Madara retrieved his Rinnegan and took control of the statue, he used it to produce chains with tips shaped like a dragon's head. These chains were able to quickly restrain and seal all 9-tailed beasts by wrapping around their necks like collars and dragging them into the statue. The chains are also capable of extracting tailed beasts from their Jinchuriki, as well as preventing them from canceling their tailed beast mode. Desert Layered Imperial Funeral Seal. Using a large quantity of sand, the user covers the enemy with several successive layers of the material before compressing it into the form of a huge pyramid, which serves to imprison the target upon its completion. Sealing tags can be placed onto the pyramid to increase its sealing power, or Shukaku can increase the seal with Juinjutsu that cover its body. Desert Suspension. Gaara uses sand to create a platform capable of supporting his weight, which he keeps suspended in the air with his chakra. One of the simpler purposes for this technique is as a defense, lifting Gaara out of reach of attacks. When airborne, Gaara can still use his other techniques, such as forming his shield of sand around the platform for extra protection. This technique can also be used for transportation, enabling Gaara to travel around quickly. Platforms can be made larger to support allies alongside him, or Gaara can give allies their own platforms. Shinki performs this technique using iron sand. Desert Wave. The user shapes their sand into a wall to protect against attacks or to block an enemy's path. Shinki's utilizes iron sand to perform this technique, which has proven to be capable of withstanding the sickle weasel technique and Urashiki Otsutsuki's fishing hook with ease. Desert Hand. The caster uses their sand to create gigantic hands or claws, which can be used for multiple purposes, including crushing, capturing, or restraining enemies and other targets. This technique was powerful enough to completely halt the demonic statue of the Outer Path's chains. Shinki's usage of this technique incorporates iron sand, which he uses to surround his hand to strengthen his punches, or attach to more iron sand to act as arms that can deliver a barrage of punches. Destroying Axe Fist. Using his Sage transformation, Jugo forms an axe on his arm, which has proven to be durable enough to block giant swords and chakra blades without damage. Destroying Smell Smoke Prison. Kigiri can produce an extremely thick smoke screen which immediately makes the opponent cough and blinds them. It also covers up the scent of the user and his allies. He may then attack at free will. The caster and those who have been specially trained for it can see clearly through the smoke screen. It also makes fleeing from battle or hiding quite easy. Diva Path. The Diva Path grants the user the ability to manipulate attractive and repulsive forces with objects and people. These techniques, however, cannot be performed in rapid succession. The amount of time required to recharge after use varies depending on the scale of the technique used, 5 seconds being the basic minimum. The Diva Path also grants another ability, Chibaku Tensei, which allows the user to create a huge makeshift terrestrial body from all the surrounding matter that is attracted to a black sphere released by this technique. Disturbance Taijutsu. Disturbance Taijutsu refers to Killer B's unique fighting style. Akin to a warrior's dance performance, B is able to rapidly and relentlessly bombard his target with precision at various angles and locations. This style, comprised of sheer unpredictable movements, can easily catch his opponents off guard. Even those who wield the Sharingan have been shown to have trouble keeping up with B's movements, and were forced to go on the defensive or retreat. B is also able to employ this technique against multiple opponents, as shown in his fight with Taka. Combining this fighting style's wind nature with swords, B is able to increase the lethality of his attacks. B, using any number of swords, can easily close in on and exploit an opponent's vital points. To maximize the style's killing potential, he could, in tandem with his 7 Super Vibrato Lightning Release swords, make use of his unique and peculiar Kenjutsu Acrobat. Double Human Bullet Tank. 2 Akamichi clan members attack from both sides of an opponent with the Human Bullet Tank, crushing and grinding anything caught in the middle. Dragon Spying Technique. A technique that allows Shiranami to see through the eyes of the dragon mural and spy on others. He can not only see what's going on the inside, but also listen to their conversation. Drilling Hand of Sage Lightning. Hagoromo gathers Senjutsu Enhanced Lightning into his hand to thrust at the opponent. Dropkick. A delivers a powerful drop kick that sends the opponent flying. It was powerful enough to send Killer B flying through several of Kumogakare's structures. Drowning Bubble Technique. By blowing his bubble pipe, Utakata produces a considerable amount of soap bubbles of various sizes, which are then used to trap an opponent's head in one to subsequently drown them. Drowning Water Blob Technique. After liquefying a portion of his body, Suigetsu manipulates the resulting water to surround his target's head, preventing them from breathing in order to either render the victim unconscious or ultimately kill them if the suffocation is sustained. Drunken Fist. This is a style of taijutsu that is only possible while the user's very drunk. Because they're intoxicated, they move irregularly and erratically, attacking with no warning and defending with unconventional methods. Users have no conscious awareness of what actions they'll take, which also means opponents can't predict what they'll do. In Rock Lee's case, he also becomes extremely belligerent while drunk, thereby adding to his opponent's confusion because of how polite he usually is. According to Might Guy, the Drunken Fist cannot be learned, taught, nor refined through training and practice. Lee is a natural prodigy of the Drunken Fist. After drinking only a small amount of alcohol, his cheeks become red and he goes into a drunken rage, picking fights with friends and foes alike. Since he's already very gifted with taijutsu, Lee is extremely destructive in his drunken state, During his first drunk experience, he destroyed the restaurant where he was dining, and even Guy struggled to subdue him, requiring assistance from Neji to hold Lee in place, which impresses Tsunade. Because of how easy Lee becomes drunk, he also sobers just as easily. When Kimimaro only scratches his face, Lee returns to normal shortly afterwards. Lee seems to have no memory of his actions while drunk, or at least he can't understand his hangover. Dust Release, Detachment of the Primitive World Technique. Dust Release, Detachment of the Primitive World Technique is a Kekai Tota utilized by the 2nd and 3rd Tsuchikage. The user uses Dust Release to create a structure with a sphere located at its center between the palms of his hands. The structure expands rapidly in size while being propelled towards its intended target and traps them inside its confines. The sphere then seems to explode with a tremendous amount of force, while the exterior walls of the structure effectively restrict the size of the blast radius, resulting in the destruction of everything and anyone caught within, as they're pulverized into minute particles of dust. The technique isn't limited to just affecting the physical matter, it can also affect chakra-based defenses, witnessed from Onoki's use of it to destroy Madara Uchiha's Susanoo. The resulting damage that this technique can produce varies considerably, depending on the initial shape of the created structure. For example, when fabricated in the form of a cube, the structure possesses a relatively small blast radius, minimizing the possibility for collateral damage. However, the conical version was implied to be enough to potentially destroy the entire island. Additionally, it is possible to produce a much larger variant of the cube-shaped technique, which was enough to destroy 25 Susanoo-clad wood clones in an instant. The cube can also be split into two after being activated, allowing for other techniques to be directed between the two halves. When two similar techniques of approximately equal power collide, the pair merge into a single large spherical explosion, where everything caught within the substantial blast radius is completely pulverized. Kako has shown he can fire off the cubical version of the technique one-handed, which allows for him to do a rapid-fire attack, albeit the cubes do not expand upon release. Dustless Bewildering Cover. The Dustless Bewildering Cover technique utilizes water vapor to bend the light around the user, essentially making them invisible. This technique allows the user to completely erase their presence, causing them to have neither a physical form nor detectable chakra while the technique is active. As such, they cannot be detected through traditional means such as chakra detection or through heightened senses. Dynamic Action. The user flips towards the opponent and attacks with a series of punches and kicks. Dynamic Entry. This is a flying kick directed at an opponent, typically at their face. The kick serves two simultaneous purposes. As a surprise attack, for which reason the user may first throw a kunai to distract targets from the approaching kick, and as an act of self-sacrifice, with the user's exaggerated stance, confident expression, and the sheer inconceivableness of the attack combining to intimidate the opponent, in the process enhancing the kick's offensive potential. Because the kick's effectiveness very much relies on appearance, any faltering of resolve will weaken it. When Might Guy realizes mid-flight that he's attacking Jiraiya, an ally, his surprise causes his kick to do less damage than it otherwise would have. Dynamic Marking. While spinning through the air, a Ninken starts urinating, scattering the urine across a wide area. Any opponents that the urine sprays are likely to be confused, embarrassed, and if it gets in their eyes, temporarily blinded until they can flush it out. More useful to the Ninken and their Inuzuka partner is that they can easily track the urine's scent, allowing them to locate anyone who's been marked by the urine regardless of where they are or where they go. This is an essential prerequisite for the Fang Wolf Fang, which makes users so fast they can't quite see where they're going, necessitating that they locate targets by scent instead. Akamaru is quite skilled with this technique, becoming very accurate through practice with Kiba Inuzuka. Early Sacrifice. Itachi jumps over his opponent while balancing himself over the opponent's shoulder, allowing the user to dodge an attack should it happen. Once landing, still holding onto the opponent's shoulder, Itachi throws them over himself onto the ground. Earth Grudge Fear. The Earth Grudge Fear is a secret kenjutsu of Takigakure, which transforms the user's body into something similar to that of a ragdoll, held together by hundreds of thick black threads. Kakazu, who stole the knowledge of this technique before his defection from Takigakure, was able to manipulate black threads for many purposes. He was capable of sewing up any injuries that he or others might suffer, commonly by reattaching body parts. This ability seems to instantly reattach even nerves and muscles, as the patients could instantly move their limbs without any other complex procedures right away. However, it appears that this ability is somewhat limited, as he warned Hidan not to move his head too much after he sewed it back on, saying that it might fall off again. He could detach parts of his limbs and then manipulate them to the point where he could even send them underground and then reattach them when he was done with them. The most significant aspect of these threads is that they granted Kakuzu a form of immortality, although he declined to think of it that way. In addition to sewing up injuries, he could use the threads to tear into a victim's body, steal their still functioning organs, and integrate them into his own body, thus extending his life. Kakuzu usually used this method to steal hearts from powerful shinobi and was able to store up to 4 spare hearts in his body at any given time, meaning that all hearts must stop functioning in order for Kakuzu to die. He can also put one of those hearts into his limbs and have them move individually, as seen when he moved his hand to remove a shadow-enhanced chakra blade that prevented the rest of his body from moving. Earth Release Barrier, Earth Prison Dome of Magnificent Nothingness. The user creates a dome of earth around a target or targets, trapping them inside. The walls of the dome have chakra flowing within, which quickly repairs any damage that its prisoners may do to it. If the user remains in contact with the dome, they're able to absorb the chakra of those who are imprisoned, making them weaker over time. Jirobo likes to do this in order to gain sustenance from his enemies. Although the dome is difficult to escape from, it isn't impossible. The chakra within its walls isn't evenly distributed, being at its thinnest on the side of the dome opposite to where the user is standing. If the prisoners can ascertain where the weak spot is and focus a sufficiently powerful attack on it, they will be able to break out. Earth Release Resurrection Technique, Corpse Soil. The Earth Release Resurrection Technique Corpse Soil is known as the ultimate Earth Element Resurrection Technique. By utilizing soil in the local ground, the user could revive the fallen in one of 2 ways. The first version allows the user to seemingly continuously resurrect a large number of slain people as zombies, but none of their rationality, physical prowess, or techniques at their disposal. They're fairly easy to destroy. If the technique is deactivated either by the user or if the user is killed, the zombies will immediately turn to dust. The second version allows the user to bring a person back as a perfect resurrection, able to use all their skills from when alive, with the addition of a preset directive the person is forced to obey despite being consciously awake. Unlike the impure world reincarnation technique, the soul is not bound to the body. This method requires a large amount of energy, i.e. electricity. At any time, by performing a snake hand seal and snapping their fingers, the caster of this technique releases the resurrected targets, turning them into loose soil. Earth Release, Added Weight Rock Technique, a technique which enhances the target's gravity at the user's discretion. The enemy's mobility is diminished as the person is crushed by gravity, and in some cases exhibit petrification-like symptoms and then they begin to crumble. Using a desert region to their advantage, the user can easily bury the enemy alive by submerging them in sand. Earth Release, Antlion Technique. This technique causes the ground and everything on and around it to be sucked in towards the middle of a large pit, much like the method an antlion uses to catch prey. Upon being dragged to the center, the victim will then be sucked underground. There, the victim, depending on how deep the user makes them sink, will be trapped and or suffocated. The range of the pit is determined by how much chakra is put into the technique. The antlion theme fits in with Kagaro's appearance, emphasizing her large jaw in this form. Earth Release, Bedrock Coffin. This technique allows the user to control multiple sections of rock and move them around their opponent. The user then forms 2 gigantic sections that crush the opponent. Earth Release, Bottomless Swamp. The user turns the ground around a target into deep mud, causing the target to sink into it until reaching their neck. The mud is very thick, making it difficult for the target to free themselves. Earth Release, Bullet Rock Technique. The user sends a huge rock at the opponent, causing them to fall back. Earth Release, Demonic Rock Spider Armor. Due to being overpowered by Strengthening Prescription Chakra Injection, Gitai creates an enhanced version from his Earth Release Hardening technique. Unlike the previous version, the user creates an armor of rock that encases their body with more demonic looking, some extended arms, and more darker in color. The appearance of the user resembles the rock spider. Earth Release, Devouring Earth. This technique allows Hidoko to control stones and rocks in the area to attack the enemy, forming several enormous jaws made out of the earth that will swallow and crush the enemy. Earth Release, Double Suicide Decapitation Technique. While lurking underground, the user grabs a target and drags them into the earth, leaving only their head above the surface. Because the victims are rendered unable to move in this state, they are easily subjected to torture or decapitation. Such extreme measures are not required, however. When Kakashi Hatake uses this on Sasuke Uchiha, it's only to restrain Sasuke. Sasuke is eventually able to free himself. Earth Release, Drone. This technique allows the user to take remote control over rocks, levitating them and moving them around. Earth Release, Dropping Lid. The user creates a giant boar-shaped earthen lid high in the air that falls on the target, trapping them. Earth Release, Dust Storm. The user slams their hands on the ground, generating a large amount of soil, which is launched and manipulated towards the opponent as a fast wave with crushing force. Earth Release, Earth and Stone Bamboo Shot. This technique condenses the soil and rock in the area to sprout out in the form of 4 large spikes, which attack the target from 4 separate directions in an attempt to skewer the opponent, making it harder to evade. Earth Release, Earth and Stone Dragon. The user creates a dragon made from the ground to attack the opponent. Earth Release, Earth Corridor. A technique that causes the surrounding earth to rise up over a target, creating a cavern. The user can either leave an opening to allow attacks to enter through the exit, cutting off any way of the target to avoid being hit, or close it up completely to prevent escape. Earth Release, Earth Dragon Bullet. After creating a mud source, the user creates a dragon-like head to shoot mud balls at an opponent. To be more threatening, the user can combine this technique with a fire technique to make the mud balls become searing hot. Earth Release, Earth Flow Divide. By flowing concentrated chakra from one's palms into the dragon veins flowing underground, one can tear the earth apart, creating large chasms. The length, width, direction, and curve of the chasms are shaped and fashioned by the user. Manipulating the dragon veins requires fine chakra control, but if one has such skill, they can use this technique to divide the space between the enemy and their own team in 2, destroy enemy camps or defenses, and even to attack. Earth Release, Earth Flow River. The user transforms the surface underneath their opponent into a muddy river that sweeps them off their feet and carries them downstream. This technique can also be used as a medium for the Earth Release, Earth Dragon Bullet technique. Earth Release, Earth Flow Wave. The user creates and rides a wave of earth that can branch off to attack from a distance. The user can also use it to skillfully manipulate the terrain around them and their opponent. Earth Release, Earth Mausoleum Dumpling. Using chakra and great physical strength, the user lifts a huge volume of the nearby earth. The mass of dirt is so large as to cast a shadow over the user's opponents and potentially frighten them away. When the user throws the earthen lump, it causes serious destruction at the place of impact. Earth Release, Earth Shore Return. Jirobo slams his hands to the ground. The strength of this slam is great enough to rip open a section of the earth in front of him and leverage it up into a wall, similar to a tatami return. This wall of earth shields Jirobo, usually from projectile attacks, but it can also be used against approaching physical strikes. After acquiring Jirobo's DNA, Kabuto Yakashi is able to use the technique through his strange transmission distant shadow technique. In Kabuto's use, the ground is lifted up on both sides of him, thus shifting the approaching Amaterasu away from him. Earth Release, Earth Spear. The user flows earth-natured chakra through all parts of their body, causing it to become noticeably darker, all while increasing their defensive power to become hard as diamond. As such, this allows the user to easily be able to withstand most attacks with little to no damage, with the exception of lightning-released ninjutsu. Furthermore, the destructive power of physical attacks is increased, making this a great all-purpose technique. Earth Release, Earth Wave Technique. The user slams their palm onto the surface below their feet, making it move akin to waves. This technique is said to require a considerable amount of chakra. Earth Release, Earth-Style Rampart. This technique makes a gigantic rampart rise up beneath the user's feet by shaping the ground and increasing the amount of earth with chakra. Depending on what the user imagines, the shape of the rampart can be anything from level ground to a steep, needle-like mountain. If the user increases the volume of earth too much, he can be forced to keep his chakra consumption down. Earth Release, Earth-Style Wall. This technique allows the user to create a protective wall out of earth. One method of doing this is for the user to convert chakra in their body into an earthen material that they spit from their mouth. The more skilled the user, the greater the volume of earth that can be created. The earth quickly piles up into a defensive wall, blocking incoming attacks. Although the muddy material is solid on its own, it's further fortified with a coat of chakra, making it more resistant to fire and water than it would otherwise be. A second method of performing this technique is to instead manipulate pre-existing earth directly. By placing their hands on the ground, users can raise the ground as a barrier in front of them. Walls erected in this way are typically featureless, but users can alter the appearance if they choose. Kakashi Hatake adorns his with bulldog sculptures. Users are not limited to strictly defensive uses for this technique, as they can create walls behind targets to prevent them from escaping, or even to entirely surround and encase said targets. The anime shows users creating these walls from afar. In Kakashi Retsuden, the Earth-style wall is one of several techniques that Kakashi specifically improves his ability with after the 4th Shinobi World War, to make up for the loss of his Sharingan. His improved Earth-style wall is large enough to surround a small village, strong enough to withstand a barrage of cannons, and Kakashi can convert sections of the wall to quartz to negate Earth's natural weakness to lightning. Kakashi is able to keep the wall up for over a day. Earth Release. Earth-style wall of 10,000 Ri. This is a cooperation ninjutsu whereby several Earth Release users simultaneously perform hand seals, and then expel a stream of mud from their mouths, which solidifies into multiple columns of earth. These grow upwards from the ground, and together form a hard defensive wall. Earth Release. Erupting Rock Mountain Cannon. Jirobo, while using his superhuman strength in his Curse Seal Level 2 form, lifts up a gigantic lump of the ground and throws it forward at the opponent, where he strikes the earth structure with a powerful punch, shattering it and causing the fragments to bombard the opponent. Earth Release. Fissure. After the hand seals are formed, a large fissure, spanning a considerable distance, is formed. Unsuspecting victims will then fall deep into the earth. Earth Release. Fist Rock Technique. By encasing their arm in rock, the user can deal a powerful hardened punch against an opponent while being protected from direct contact with their target. If necessary, the weight of the rock can be increased to further increase the punch's destructive power. Earth Release. Flying Thrown Stones. After slamming his hands on the ground, Io sends a multitude of rocks from the ground to fly at the target. If need be, Io can use this technique in conjunction with ceiling tags to restrict an opponent's movements. Earth Release. Golem Technique. This technique allows the user to create a large humanoid creature composed of rock that can either be expelled from the user's mouth or formed from a pre-existing source of earth. Depending on the user, the golem can be formed instantly. The size of the golem differs depending on use, but it always possesses an ample amount of brute strength, being able to bite and tear through a white Zetsu clone. It's very durable, being able to withstand a point-blank explosion. This makes the golem ideal for serving as additional support or simply as a mobile shield. Earth Release. Gravel. The user upturns the earth around a target, then condenses it around them, immobilizing and trapping them. The user can reverse the technique if they so wish. Earth Release. Great Moving Earth Core. This technique grants the user the ability to freely lower or raise the terrain within a specific area surrounding them, in a similar manner to its parent technique, albeit on a much larger scale. This allows them to create giant holes or elevations in the ground, one of which was large enough to trap the Tentails in. Earth Release. Mud Body Technique. A technique that transforms the user's body into mud. The user could form the mud into a makeshift arm, which can stretch a considerable distance, and could form the mud into a wall to protect an ally. The user can also shoot a multitude of mud shots from all directions. Earth Release. Mud Spore. The user summons a river of mud, which, if mixed with water, can speed up the flow and increase its power. Earth Release. Mud Wolves. A trap technique that is activated when one comes into contact with the user's chakra. Upon doing so, pre-existing mud will form into wolves and attack. Despite being damaged, the wolves will simply reform, keeping the enemy occupied while the user makes a getaway. The only drawback to this technique is that setting it up is time-consuming and could allow the opponent to catch up. Earth Release. Mudslide. The user punches the ground, causing the earth to rise underneath them, which releases a wave of dirt. Earth Release. Multiple Earth-style Wall. Like the parent technique, it creates a reinforced wall of earth to be used as a defensive mechanism. Using a pre-existing source of earth, however, it allows the user to create multiple walls of earth, further fortifying their defense, so that even when the outer walls are destroyed, the inner ones are still left intact. The walls can also be curved inward to block escape from above. Earth Release. Mutability. This technique is a combination of the summoning technique and an earth release technique. The user summons a large amount of rock from a giant canyon to be used for other techniques. The user can channel his chakra into the earth to alter the formation, aiding them in sneak attacks. Alternatively, by offering a donation of blood, they can summon a rock in the design of one of Fuen's drawings. Earth Release. Opening Earth Rising Excavation. With this technique, the user can bring up to the surface something that is deep underground. The targets are launched in the air with great strength and speed, the result of which has the appearance and nearly size of an erupting volcano. It can force a large number of soldiers hidden underground to resurface all at once. While in the manga, the technique has only been performed by 2 users together, the anime shows that a single user can perform a smaller scaled version which brings forth multiple earth pillars. Earth Release. Practice Brick Technique. This is a rudimentary earth release technique used by shinobi of Iwagakure. After forming the necessary hand seals, the user places their hand on the ground and creates a solid wall to serve as a defensive barricade, manipulating pre-existing earth to rise up and take form. Though weak, these walls can serve as a makeshift blockade when formed by several users, slowing down large and powerful attacks. Using this technique is apparently extremely simple, to the point where it can be taught to even non-primary earth release users in a matter of seconds. Earth Release. Rending Drill Fang. While submerged beneath an enemy, the user launches themselves out of the ground to launch an attack. 8 Branches Technique. This is Orochimaru's greatest and strongest snake-related technique. Using the power of reincarnation possessed by the white snake as an intermediary, he can transform into a giant white serpent with 8 heads and 8 tails. The serpent boasts a giant body, even larger than that of Manda, who is feared as the strongest colossal serpent. Just by crawling on the scales of its abdomen, it was able to trample the Uchiha hideout, and could destroy most things without difficulty. The technique transcends the snake and becomes like a dragon god. When using this technique, Orochimaru can emerge from the mouth of one of the heads and use his sword of Kusanagi to attack, even without a host. 8 Gates. The 8 gates exist in order to limit the flow of chakra within an individual's body. Ordinarily, individuals can use no more than 20% of their body's full potential, the brain's way of protecting the individual from harming their body through overexertion. With training, individuals can learn to remove these limiters, referred to as opening the gates. With each opened gate, individuals are given access to more and more of their body's chakra, thus increasing their physical strength and speed. Ninja able to open the 8 gates have existed since at least the time of Madara Uchiha. Since Madara's era, there have only been a few known users. Might Dai learned to open all 8 gates after 20 years of extensive training. Might Guy, Dai's son, was taught how to open all 8 gates by his father. Rock Lee, Guy's student, was taught how to open some of the 8 gates by Guy. During part 1, he's able to open the first 5 gates. By part 2, he's able to open the 6th gate. By adulthood, Lee has mastered all 8 gates. In the anime, Metal Lee, Rock Lee's son, is shown subconsciously opening the first gate. Kakashi Hatake is seemingly able to open the first gate as seen when he activates it during a cliff climbing practice. Learning to open any of the 8 gates is apparently very difficult, as Kakashi is surprised when he's told that Lee, only 13 years old at the time, can open 5 gates. Kakashi notes that such an accomplishment is impossible through hard work alone. Part of Kakashi's surprise is also because he does not believe it was wise for Guy to teach Lee to open the gates in the first place. Although opening the gates does briefly give the user power greater than what they're normally capable of, this increased power causes the user serious harm. At a minimum, the user will be fatigued, which can leave them vulnerable to attack if this occurs during combat. In more extreme cases, muscles can tear and bones can break from the strain, which can be treated with medical ninjutsu. When opening the 8th and final gate, users will die as a consequence, their bodies being unable to survive the immense amounts of chakra flowing through them. Using the 8 gates is described as a double-edged sword, empowering users by sacrificing their own health and safety. Such risks have caused the 8 gates to be likened to Kinjutsu. Because of this, Dai developed a self-rule to dictate when it was acceptable to open any of the 8 gates, a rule he passed to Guy, and that Guy subsequently passed on to Lee. To only open the 8 gates when protecting something that is precious enough to give one's life. Often this precious something is a family member, a loved one, or a teammate. Rock Lee has also been known to use the 8 gates to defend his Nindo, the dream by which he leads his life. 8 gates released formation. This is a heightened state that is achieved by opening all 8 gates. The user opens their body's 8th gate by puncturing themselves just above the heart, causing a bloody steam, resembling a flaming red aura, to start emanating from their pores, hair, and eyebrows. Their body will continue to heat up until it's been cooked from the inside out, reducing the user to ash. Opening all the 8 gates inevitably leads to death. While all of the 8 gates are open, the user's heart pumps at maximum power, granting them power 100 times greater than they're usually capable of, far beyond that of the 5 Kage. Might Dai, the Eternal Genin, was able to fight the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist, and in the anime, kill 4 of them. Might Guy is able to gradually overwhelm Madara Uchiha, the 10 Tails Jinchuriki at the time, earning him comparisons to Hashirama Senju. Elbow. After covering himself in his lightning release chakra mode, A thrusts his elbow at his opponent with extreme force. The technique was strong enough to send Jugo, who was in his full sage transformation, crashing into a wall, disabling him from fighting any further. Empty Cicada Shell Technique. This is a ninjutsu used by Jigomo that allows the user to project their voice from any direction. This is generally used to confuse their opponents about their actual position when talking to them. Empty Crash. By utilizing the partial multi-size technique, the user smashes the ground with their enlarged fist, causing debris to fly from the ground into the air. The user then jumps into the air and swings their enlarged fist into the debris, sending them flying towards their target. Enclosing Technique. Using this technique, a wide variety of objects and even living things can be stored within scrolls, and can be released when the scroll is opened or meets a specific condition. It's possible to seal ninjutsu into a scroll, as demonstrated by Kisame Hoshigaki, who placed sharks into his water prison technique that he sealed into a scroll, which would activate and imprison anyone that tried to read the scroll upon opening it. To save chakra, instead of sealing a nature element into a scroll that was created through chakra, one can just use pre-existing nature elements, like water from an ocean, and seal it within the scroll. Though a scroll is the most common use of sealing something, as demonstrated by Ajisai in the anime, this technique can be used to seal things into a small sheet of paper too. Ephemeral. This technique allows Itachi to put his opponent within a genjutsu by using his finger as a medium. This induces the genjutsu. When the technique was used on Naruto Uzumaki, crows flocked from Itachi and turned into shuriken after he performed the ram seal, which bombarded Naruto, and then attempted to put him to sleep. When he resisted the sleep command, Naruto then experienced the sensation of his body parts turning into his closest friends, who then tortured him psychologically. This is implied to be an extra stage of the genjutsu caused by Itachi after performing the ram seal. The same goes along with his use of shuriken. Evasion technique. Using her dojutsu, Yome is able to easily see attacks coming, allowing her a better chance to dodge or launch a counterattack. Evening Elephant. The Evening Elephant is a high-level forbidden taijutsu that can be performed by those who have opened all 8 gates. This technique is a continuous assault of 5 punches, with each foot, as they are referred to, being performed faster than the one before. It creates a cannon of pressurized air which bears the appearance of an elephant's leg, causing devastating damage to the opponent. The first punch alone was capable of creating a massive and deep tunnel in the ground. The final punch is strong enough to break through Madara Uchiha's chakra shell. The strength of several of these punches was enough to temporarily immobilize Madara Uchiha as the Ten Tails Jinchuriki. Event Recording. This is an unnamed ability possessed by Black Zetsu that allows it to record events that it has personally witnessed. When used in conjunction with its signature Mayfly technique, Black Zetsu can gather data from battles without being detected. In order to show these recordings to others, it must first merge with the recipient. Black Zetsu over the centuries claims it was able to record the entire history of shinobi to later show its creator Kaguya Otsutsuki after her revival. Evil Disturbance Waltz. Clad in Susanoo, Madara hurls his chakra sword at the opponent, swirling like a shuriken. During his battle with Hashirama Senju, Madara had cloaked Kurama in a Susanoo and pierced through the beast's tailed beast balls for a more damaging result. Evil Releasing Method. The Evil Releasing Method is a direct counterpart to the Evil Sealing Method. It's used to release technique-induced seals in a person rather than sealing it. Compared to the Evil Sealing Method, the Evil Releasing Method requires far less preparation. Sasuke Uchiha created the technique to revive Orochimaru, mixing a piece of Kabuto Yakashi's modified flesh to create a body for the consciousness of Orochimaru that was left in Anko Mitarashi's Cursed Seal of Heaven. Evil Sealing Method. This technique suppresses the power of a cursed seal. Because applying cursed seals in the first place requires a great deal of skill, suppressing one with this technique also requires a great deal of skill. The preparations needed for this technique are quite arduous. Users write several long lines of symbols in their own blood which trail from the cursed seal through the surrounding area. Once this is completed and the technique is activated, the symbols converge towards and surround the cursed seal, the blood acting as a chain that prevents the cursed seal from spreading. Applying the Evil Sealing Method is quite painful, and recipients are likely to pass out after receiving it. The Evil Sealing Method can only suppress cursed seals, not remove them. Its power also relies on the will of the recipient. If the recipient wants it to work, then it'll fight off the cursed seal's effects as much as it can. But if the user would rather the cursed seal activated, the Evil Sealing Method will be powerless to prevent it. For this reason, after Kakashi Hatake suppresses Sasuke Uchiha's Cursed Seal of Heaven, Kakashi takes efforts to train Sasuke so he won't be tempted by the Cursed Seal's power, notably teaching him the Chidori. This ends up not being enough for Sasuke as he willingly accepts the Cursed Seal of Heaven's influence. Over the following years, the Evil Sealing Method remains imprinted upon him, but inert since Sasuke has no need for it. When the Cursed Seal is ultimately removed, the Evil Sealing Method is removed as well. In the anime, Kurenai Yuhi uses this technique to hold back the Kurama clan's Kekkei Genkai. Execution by Kiss. This ability allows Fuka to absorb all of an opponent's chakra and techniques by kissing them, giving her multiple elemental affinities as well as enforcing the ones she already has and gaining access to all of her victims' elemental techniques. After absorbing her opponent's chakra, she could steal their soul. This technique could also be used to determine what elemental affinities the target has by licking them. Due to one body part being unable to handle so much chakra, Fuka distributes the chakra she absorbed into multiple bodies, and uses color course change to switch to another if needed. When she tried using this against Naruto Uzumaki, however, she began absorbing the chakra of the Nine Tails, but the pure rage and malice in its chakra proved too much for her that she stopped the technique. Expansive Truth-Seeking Ball. The Expansive Truth-Seeking Ball is a Kekemora ninjutsu used by Kaguya Otsutsuki. It is composed of all 5 elemental nature transformations as well as yin-yang release. Kaguya Otsutsuki used the God Tree to absorb chakra from all the people trapped inside the God Nativity of a World of Trees technique to create a maximized truth-seeking ball. A vast, expanding mass of chaos with power to reshape the world by obliterating it to nothing first. Unlike the standard truth-seeking ball, in which a user starts with a set amount of spheres that cannot be regenerated if lost or destroyed, this technique does not have such limitations and can be generated from nothing. Exploding Dragon Strike. Tenten opens one of her scrolls and releases a large flaming dragon that explodes upon contact. Exploding Flame Shot. By creating a spark from their hands, this technique allows the user to throw multiple balls of flames, which are able to either cause fiery explosions on impact or set the target on fire. Exploding Human Technique. This technique was created by Chino after the 4th Shinobi World War, who used information within mineral springs that came into contact with white Zetsu as a reference to structure the technique. When a Ketsuryugan wielder makes direct skin contact with a target, they can infuse some of their chakra into the target. The said chakra becomes poisonous to their target, making their body unstable. Should the target then begin to bleed, the chakra will be set off, causing the victim's body to become consumed in a pitch-black substance before inflating in a grotesque manner and finally exploding on a large and very destructive scale. Only by blocking the chakra flow of the target or rendering them unconscious will it nullify mutation and following explosion. With proper medical aid, the poisonous chakra can be extracted, saving the victim completely. Exploding Insect. The user blinds the enemy with a smoke screen to scatter larvae that, if inhaled, will grow inside their body into a spider-like parasite that explodes, killing the host. The insect's growth depends on how much chakra the host is using, and a massive amount of chakra can speed up the growth process. The insect can, however, be removed by the means of surgery, though it is difficult, as one mistake can cause the insect to explode. The Nokizaru group, notable users of this technique, regularly taunt their victims into attacking after being exposed, thereby accelerating the process. Exploding Sasumata Attack. Gamaken attacks the opponent with his Sasumata, which causes explosions. Explosion Release. Exploding Palm. The user creates a small explosion in their palm. If properly timed and angled, it can be used to send thrown kunai back at the enemy. Gari has also used this to cut the length of binding cloth that Maki used to restrain Pakura. Explosion Release. Landmine Fist. After establishing direct contact with their opponent through a simple punch, the user utilizes Explosion Release to subsequently generate an enormous explosion from the opponent's insides. This explosion is powerful enough to completely obliterate an opponent far larger than the user. Due to the directionality of the blast, the user minimizes any potential repercussions, such as being struck by resultant debris and even recoil, appears to be completely negated. In the anime, Gari is able to use the technique on the ground to create a shockwave of upturned earth and debris to throw the enemy off balance. Explosive Clay. Explosive Clay is the characteristic skill of Deidara, first used during his career as a terrorist bomber and later as a member of Akatsuki. Deidara holds the belief that art is the moment in which something that has form is destroyed. In order to pursue this view, as well as to apply it towards combat, he stole a kinjutsu passed down in Iwagakure that allows its user to knead chakra into materials. Deidara feeds clay to one of his body's mouths, most commonly the mouth on his left palm, giving them shape and turning them into explosives. The power and type of explosion is determined by the chakra that he applies to the clay. In Akatsuki Hiden, the quality of the clay is also an important consideration, as inferior clays won't take the exact form that Deidara intends, nor will their detonation be as impressive. The white clay used in Ceramic Village for Hanasaki Ceramics is the best clay Deidara has found. The explosives are initially palm-sized, making them easy to prepare in advance and then carry into combat. To make practical use of them, however, it is necessary that Deidara enlarge them. This in turn brings the clay creation to life, which Deidara can remotely control depending on how large it was made. An average sized bird can be sent flying at an opponent as an attack. A large bird can be used as a form of transportation, and once he reaches his destination, he can send it flying at an opponent as an attack. To detonate the clay, he makes the seal of confrontation and says Katsu. Because Deidara relies on clay to make his explosives, running out of clay severely limits his options in battle. Low chakra reserves also place Deidara at a disadvantage, as his mouths will struggle to shape the clay into usable forms. Deidara's clay is all earth-based, meaning that opponents can defuse the explosives with lightning release. Explosive clay dolls. Datara releases a glob of explosive clay from both his hands that he forms into deformed human-like figures. Datara then uses them to fight his opponent in close combat. Their body structure allows them to extend their body parts and not be sliced by normal means. However, a lightning-infused chop or sword will suffice. If a clay figure loses a body part, Datara can simply attach a clay cord to it and form another clay figure. As the clay figures are made from explosive clay, Datara can also detonate them at any moment while they're fighting the opponent. Explosive landmines. After creating the C2 dragon, Datara has the clay dragon spawn numerous clay mines and has his partner bury them underground, thus allowing unsuspecting victims to walk on the mines which then explode. These landmines explode automatically when they're stepped on. As such, they're not under Datara's control. Extreme decapitating airwaves. This is a stronger version of decapitating airwaves, having greater power, range, and coverage angle. Using a large amount of chakra, Zaku Abumi emits a high-pressured mixture of sound waves and air waves from the holes in the palms of his hands into the area ahead of him. It momentarily blocks visibility as the air and sound quickly travel forwards, carving up the ground and reducing everything in its path to dust. The sheer destructiveness of this technique prevents it from being used in quick succession as it places a great burden on Zaku's arms. Eye mind reading. Eye mind reading is a technique that allows the user to read another's mind. By subtly weaving signs with their eye, the user can delve into the mind of their target through eye contact without them noticing. This can also be used on a target that is currently reading the user's mind. The user is even able to perform this on themselves to restore or remove information in their own mind. Face copying technique. The user looks at a target to copy their appearance. The technique is considered to be a flawless transformation technique, as even the copied person's allies won't be able to tell the difference, and the Ninken would not detect a different scent. Though the user copies the person's face and body, they can't use their techniques or unique abilities, and they're also very weak to attack. In order to copy an appearance, the user needs to wear a special mask and stay close to the target for a long time. When the technique commences, the user's eyes begin to glow. The transformation lasts only a few days and is unique to the Kerouin clan. Feather launching. Satori launches its feathers towards opponents at high speeds, capable of piercing stone ground and chakra-enforced wood. Near the end of his life, Muku, in his human form, fired a barrage of feathers straight from his mouth via a screech when Satori attempted to take over a second time. Feigning sleep technique. Gaara uses this technique to force himself to fall asleep. This causes him to surrender control to Shukaku, who is sealed within him. While it is the dominant personality, Shukaku has complete access to its large chakra reserves, which it uses according to its inherently destructive tendencies. Before using this technique, Gaara creates a full replica of Shukaku out of sand for it to use. Gaara emerges from the replica's forehead in order to perform this technique, where his body remains even after he's asleep. This represents a vulnerability, as opponents can focus their attacks on Gaara with the goal of rousing him. If they do successfully wake Gaara, Shukaku's personality will be suppressed again. Fighting tongue bind. After forcing Senjutsu chakra to it, Shima's tongue grows to its maximum limit and is reshaped with a face. The tongue will then seek out the scent of its target. When the target is found, she ensnares it to prevent escape and marks it with a corrosive chemical. After the enemy is found, Fukusaku can use the fighting tongue slash on it. Fighting tongue slash. By kneading Senjutsu chakra, Fukusaku's long tongue gains utmost solidity and sharpness. It then leaps from his mouth with tremendous speed and force, enough to tear a hole through bedrock and metal pipes with ease. With that ground-splitting power, the enemy is cut in half. The way that both the enemy and the ground itself are cut apart is reminiscent of the strike of a great sword. Finger carving seal. The user concentrates chakra into their finger, and using the heat from that can apply writing of whatever they want to a surface. This technique, however, requires them to be very delicate with their chakra control. The technique causes slight discomfort for a living target, and if it is on flesh, it will scar. Fire release bullet, blaze. The user launches a massive fire at their opponent. When used through autonomous puppets, they can fire it in rapid succession without hand seals. However, continuous firing can lead them to overheat and thus disable them until they've cooled down. Fire release cooperation technique, Garuda. 3 users each breathe a long stream of intense fire which combine to form a flaming dragon. Fire release, ash pile burning. The user spews a stream of chakra-infused gunpowder from their mouth, which surrounds the region. As the gunpowder is composed entirely of ash, it stays in the air around the victim like a cloud, which can be used like a smokescreen. After surrounding the enemy with the ash, the user can ignite it with a flint placed on their teeth beforehand to create a spark, resulting in a violent explosion burning the enemy. However, this technique requires keen senses to read the air currents, the insight to read the movements of the enemy, the tactical experience to not also enfold one's allies in the flames, and careful attention for the timing of the ignition. Fire Release, Big Flame Bullet. This technique is a senjutsu altered version of the Fire Release Flame Bullet. The user fills their mouth cavity with oil created inside their body with senjutsu chakra. The oil is expelled and at the same time ignited, creating a massive flame, equivalent in power to a multitude of flame bullets. The flames can be used as a single projectile or a continuous stream of flames. With a single bullet, Jiraiya was able to instantly incinerate Nagato's giant drill-beaked bird. When used in a closed-off area, the flames produced can completely cut off the front escape route of an enemy cornered in a hallway or room, while thoroughly engulfing each other route. Fire Release, Blast Wave Wild Dance. The Fire Release Blast Wave Wild Dance is a technique that combines the might of the Sharingan and Fire Release. The user kneads chakra inside their body and converts it into fire, which is then expelled from their mouth in a large stream. The blaze is drawn into a spiral when the user expands their stomach, which will engulf the opponent in a massive vortex, giving them no option to escape, leaving them to suffer and burn. If needed, Kamui can be used to draw out a whirlwind, aiding the formation of the fiery spiral. As this technique combines the use of the Sharingan and Fire Release, common characteristics of the Uchiha clan, it is indeed a formidable ninjutsu. Fire Release, Blazing Meteors. The user creates a myriad of small fireballs that are then directed towards the target's destination. Fire Release, Crimson Earth Spider. The user spews out fire that both surrounds the enemy and then transforms into a spider that attacks the enemy. This technique effectively traps and attacks an opponent at the same time and can be used to force them into another attack. Fire Release, Demon Lantern. This technique releases many floating fireballs around the user, which take the shape of ghosts at the final stage of the technique. After performing the required hand seal, they attack the opponent in swarms. Each fireball creates a huge flame at the moment of impact. Fire Release, Dragonfire Technique. The user spits flames from their mouth that, like a dragon's, quickly travel forward in a straight direction. Upon contact with a target, the affected area is engulfed in flames. Whereas the giant fireball technique will burn everything in the vicinity, the Dragonfire technique is more narrowly focused at its initial target, likened to a projectile. When first used by Sasuke Uchiha, he uses wire strings to guide the Dragonfire technique to his target's face. The anime later shows it burning through a line of enemies, with the flames moving from one enemy to the next. Despite these two cases, the Dragonfire technique seemingly does not require a medium through which to be transmitted. Fire Release, Dragon Flame Release Song Technique. This is an advanced version of its parent technique. The technique allows the user to expel several dragon-headed fireballs from their mouth to cover the frontal, left, and right sides of the opponent. As the dragon heads move in an erratic manner, it makes the technique much more difficult to avoid. Fire Release, Exploding Flame Formation. Fire Release Exploding Flame Formation is a technique that was a specialty of Hanzo. This technique makes use of explosive tags that have had a fire release technique applied in advance, which are hidden along the Earth's surface. When the target steps in place, the user slams their palm on the ground and causes the explosive tags to stream towards the target, wrapping around their body from the feet upwards and sticking to them. Once in place around the target's legs, the tags detonate simultaneously, causing a large explosion capable of blasting through solid rock and engulfing the target in flames. On one occasion, despite Hanzo commending Nagato for having avoided this technique, the latter still suffered permanent damage to his legs that severely restricted his mobility, attesting to its destructive power. Fire Release, Fire Dragon Bullet. A basic fire release technique, where the user exhales a flame breath from their mouth. As shown by Hiruzen, this technique can be used in conjunction with Earth Release, Earth Dragon Bullet to ignite the projectiles fired by the latter technique, making it more devastating. Fire Release, Fire Dragon Flame Bullet. After kneading chakra, the user breathes fire from their mouth. The flames are manipulated into the shape of a dragon and divided to strike the target from the left, right, and front all at once. Unlike the Great Fireball, which covers a wide area, the Fire Dragon Flame Bullet makes focused strikes, quickly reducing targets to ash upon contact. Alternatively, the flames can coil around the target and form into a vortex, effectively keeping them trapped in place unless they can escape through the top. Because of the power of this technique, as well as the amount of skill it takes to control the flames, there are very few ninja who can perform it, the third Hokage being one such user. Fire Release, Fired Pottery Technique. The user creates powerful flames inside the giant oven created by the lightning release 16-pillar bind, cooking the opponent until they're burned. It's used together with earth release sticky earth drop to harden the mud covering the enemy's body and subsequently immobilizes them. Fire release, flame attack. The user imbues their fists with fire release. Upon striking the target, they will become consumed by flames. Fire release, flame bullet. This technique is executed by the user gathering oil in their mouth, created by chakra, then spitting it out and igniting it. This technique simply shoots a flame bullet at the enemy. If the amount of oil that is prepared is kept down, the time it takes to invoke the technique is reduced. This allows the enemy to be stricken unaware, allowing the oil-containing flame bullet to burn them up completely. It's also possible to shoot out a series of flame bullets by partitioning the oil, or a continuous flamethrower. If this technique is fired after covering the enemy with oil using the toad oil bullet, it has the power to wound or kill. This also keeps down the consumption of chakra. Fire release, flame capture. The user creates a fire whip. It can knock an opponent a considerable distance, strong enough to damage rock. Fire release, flame whirlwind. Fire erupts around the user's body in a spiraling manner, which is then launched with its hands towards the target. Once the technique hits the target, the opponent is sent into the air in a spiraling manner and their body burns to ashes. Fire release, flint yagura. The user throws a lighter on the ground in front of his opponent and expands the flame into a wall of fire. It is noted to be a technique that makes a small spark burst into a pillar of flame. Fire release, foxfire. The user manifests 10 fireballs in a circle in front of them and launches them with their hand motions. Fire release, Great Dragon Fire Technique. The user compresses a large amount of chakra built up inside their body and changes it into a dragon head-shaped fireball. The user then skillfully manipulates that great fire and attacks their opponent. Even outside of the attack range, its power and reliability are stressed. The flames have a high temperature, which can create an upward movement of air currents, which in turn can give rise to thunderclouds. A master of this technique can fire off several flames in succession, and anyone caught in the technique could potentially be reduced to ashes. Fire release, Great Fire Annihilation. The pinnacle of Uchiha fire release techniques, chakra needed inside the body is converted into fire and then expelled from the mouth and shaped into a literal sea of flames, which covers a wide range. This makes the technique extremely difficult to either avoid or contain, with it requiring the combined efforts of several water release users in order to extinguish the flames. Fire release, Great Fire Destruction. A technique where chakra needed inside the user's body is converted into fire and then expelled from the mouth in a massive stream of intense flames that can set a vast area ablaze, engulfing the target in a veritable sea of flames. If used upon a dense combustible terrain such as a forest, the confined area can greatly increase the possibility of the target's incineration. Fire release, Great Fire Heavenly Prison. A stronger version of the fire release Heavenly Prison that can be used on larger targets. Unlike with the parent technique, when this is used, the person's entire body is engulfed in flames as the cursed seal is branded on them. Fire release, Great Fireball Technique. The user needs chakra in their body and turns it into flame, which they then expel from their mouth. The more chakra they use, the more flames are produced. Sometimes the flames lack a distinct shape, being only a stream, but more often than not they take the form of a giant orb that maintains its shape until hitting a target. Upon impact, the fireball is powerful enough to crater the ground and vaporize the surroundings. Against living targets, the fireball can cause extensive burns. The Great Fireball technique was created by the Uchiha clan and over time became one of their signature abilities. The Uchiha in fact used the Great Fireball technique as a coming-of-age rite, with members not being considered true adults until they learned to perform it. Fire release, Great Flame Flower. Needing his chakra and then converting it to fire, the user creates a multitude of fireballs at the same time, which then rain down on the target, causing severe, widespread damage over the field. These fireballs can easily destroy earth release created shelters and even overpower water release attacks. Fire release, Great Flame Technique. The fire release Great Flame Technique is a hidden fire release technique utilized by the Sarutobi clan. The user needs chakra in their stomach and expels a large stream of flames from their mouth that progressively widens with range. The technique can also be used collaboratively to create an enormous vortex of rapidly expanding flames. The flames are hot enough to quickly evaporate large quantities of water within a relatively short amount of time. Fire release, Heavenly Prison. The fire release Heavenly Prison is an imprisonment technique, or Kinko Jutsu, used by Mui's clan. The ones who are subjected to this technique have a formula applied to them which will prevent them from molding chakra and from using techniques. It will also drain them of their chakra at a slow but steady rate. Mui uses this technique on the prisoners of the Hozuki castle. If the ones who have the seal on them leave a certain radius from the applier, then it will cause the victims to burst into flames from the inside, burning them to ashes. The user can also ignite the seal at their own free will. However, for people with high amounts of chakra, such as Naruto, they can still mold chakra and use techniques to a certain extent. The techniques used, however, will be severely hampered, and the seal will cause the user in question intense pain, as though their bodies were on fire. If too much chakra is forced out, the formula will set the victim ablaze. It's possible for an individual to undo the heavenly prison placed by another, as Benga undid Tsukiyo's that was placed by Mujo. Being a fire technique, it cannot work in water, and the victim simply has to submerge themselves in a body of water to use chakra with ease. Anyone set aflame by this technique can be saved if water is poured over them. Also, this technique only suppresses normal chakra from within one's body. When enhanced with natural energy gathered externally, one is able to use chakra. If anyone with the seal applied were to create a shadow clone, the clone would not bear the seal. The seal will disappear if the user dies. Fire release, hiding in ash and dust technique. The user expels chakra-infused ash that blanket a wide area, burning anyone who comes in contact with it. The technique can also be used as a powerful deterrent from attacks as well as a highly effective smokescreen. This technique is a far more effective substitute for smoke bombs, since the user doesn't need their hands to be free, nor does this technique require hand seals. Fire release, hiding in fire technique. Using this technique, a user can hide themselves inside a flame. Upon leaving concealment, flames burn, revealing the user. A member of the Nokizaru group made use of this technique during a mission to retrieve a stolen scroll from Kumogakure shinobi. Fire release, intelligent hard work. Kakuzu's fire element mask fires a small fireball that erupts into a giant fire storm after making contact with a surface, causing widespread destruction to the area. Since the flames travel along the ground and cover such a wide area, this is a difficult technique to evade. When combined with the wind release pressure damage, this technique is amplified to the point of being able to evaporate a large amount of water in an instant. Fire release, mist blaze dance technique. The user is able to create and blow a flammable gas from their lungs. Once it comes in contact with fire or spark, the gas ignites into a large fireball. Kagero uses this technique while disguised as Kabuto Yakashi. Fire release, Phoenix Sage Fire technique. The user spits a volley of small fireballs into the air. At a glance, it can appear as though there was only one fireball that then bursts into many. The many small flames move wildly through the area, potentially mesmerizing targets as they're surrounded. The user controls each individual flame with their chakra, allowing them to guide each at the target and consequently making this technique difficult to evade. Shuriken can be hidden within the flames, not only making them more deadly upon impact, but also by controlling the flame's movements, giving the users a means of controlling the shuriken as well. Fire release, Phoenix Sage Flower Nail Crimson. The user unleashes a volley of shuriken with one hand and at the same time exhales fire-infused chakra onto them, in order to increase the weapon's destructive potential by making them capable of inflicting severe burns upon direct contact with either the intended victim or any other object caught within their trajectories. Due to the chakra-based nature of the flames that surround them, the shuriken will continue to burn after impact, regardless of the flammability of the object that they ultimately collide with. Fire release, Running Fire. This technique creates a stream of fire that can be manipulated into several forms. So far, rings of fire that run on the ground or a circle of fire flying through the air before striking the target. It can also be used in combination with Wind Release Divine Wind to create a tornado of flames, or with Wind Release Divine Mountain Wind to release a massive inferno. The latter, which is made even more powerful when used in an enclosed space created by Earth Release Earth Corridor. Fire Release Toad Oil Flame Bullet. This is a cooperation ninjutsu performed by a toad and a fire user who have achieved mental and physical harmony with each other. The toad, specifically a large one such as Gamabunta, uses its large lung capacity to spray toad oil from its mouth at a target. The fire user then ignites the oil, increasing the attack's power and range. Jiraiya uses Fire Release Flame Bullet for this purpose. In the anime, Naruto Uzumaki instead sets flame to the oil with an exploding tag. The resulting cloud of fire is great enough that it forces Manda to shed its skin to escape. Fire Sealing Method. The user first readies a scroll that they've previously inscribed with a special sealing formula, which has a blank space left in the center. They then activate this technique, quickly sucking any nearby fire release into the blank space and sealing it there, signified by the appearance of the kanji for seal. Regardless of any special properties that the flames may have, such as those of Amaterasu, they will remain sealed until the user chooses to unseal them. Because this technique is designed for fire release, performing it requires expertise in not only using seals, but ninjutsu as well. Fission technique. The fission technique is a highly advanced ninjutsu which allows Mu to literally split his own body into two identical yet entirely independent duplicates of himself. Unlike clone techniques that only appear to be similar, the ability is instead a physical separation, and so does not require hand seals to activate, making it faster in comparison as a result. This also means that even if one is incapacitated, the other remains completely unaffected, as neither can be truly regarded as the original. Because the duplicates cannot be dispelled like normal clones, they will be unable to reunite if one is sealed. This poses a great risk to Mu, as his chakra reserves are also halved in the process. In doing so, he is left unable to use more taxing techniques like his dust release Keketota. 5-element seal. Orochimaru gathers wicked chakra to his 5 fingertips, which he forcefully applies over another seal. When this 5-element seal, being an odd number, is applied over the 4-symbol seal, being of an even number, the 4-symbol seal is disrupted because of the odd-even imbalance. In Naruto Uzumaki's case, he loses access to the chakra of the Nine Tails, which the 4-symbol seal keeps stored in his body, and furthermore makes it difficult for him to use his own. When the 5-element seal is initially applied, Naruto is rendered unconscious. When Jiraiya is later removing the 5-element seal from Naruto, he is able to correctly guess that Orochimaru applied it in the first place, describing its use as coarse. 5-element unseal. This technique removes seals of similar power to itself. The user gathers chakra to their fingertips and hits the fingers against the seal that is to be removed, causing it to unravel and disappear. If the seal was applied to a person, the thrust of the hand that accompanies the technique will likely be painful. When Jiraiya uses this technique to remove a 5-element seal, it appears quite easy for him. In truth, this is a very advanced technique that even a Jonin would find difficult to perform. In the anime, Kazuma uses the 5-element unseal on Sora, thus increasing his access to the Nine Tails chakra sealed in his body. In another episode, Orochimaru uses the 5-element unseal to break the iron armor seal. 5-release great combo technique. The user creates 4 shadow clones and alongside them launch a different base elemental attack at the target simultaneously. 5-seal barrier. This technique creates a barrier around a place by placing 4 forbidden tags in different locations surrounding the place to be protected, a 5th tag on the location to be protected. The tags are placed on flat surfaces and are connected with the user's chakra. This technique turns the entire range surrounded by the tags into a barrier space, and inside the space, the material's destruction is forbidden. Using any kind of physical attack to try and destroy something in the barrier is folly, as it will only lead to injury. To cancel this, it is necessary to search for the other 4 tags and tear them off simultaneously, meaning there must be at least 5 people on a team to cancel it. This likely means this technique was designed to counter the fact that shinobi generally move in 4-man teams, thus allowing the user to buy more time. Even if the tags are removed, the user could add a trap that will create perfect copies of those who have removed the seal, preventing them from returning immediately. 5-seal barrier pass technique. In order to enter the boundary created by the 5-seal barrier without dispelling the technique, Deidara used a technique which raised the rock blocking the entry to Akatsuki's hideout. It granted him and Sasori passage into the hideout while keeping the barrier intact. Flaming Arrow of Amazing Ability. The Flaming Arrow of Amazing Ability is a technique used by Nagato through the Asura Path. Using the body modification ability of the Asura Path, the user compresses a high amount of chakra at the slit of its wrist before releasing it, causing its detachable hand to be fired with tremendous force. It has enough destructive power to easily break through thick bedrock. As the hand portion is protected with chakra, it allows it to remain unscathed. When the attack is complete, the hand is drawn back like a magnet by chakra in the wrist, reattaching itself. Flaming Arrow Warhead. The Flaming Arrow Warhead technique is used by Nagato through the Asura Path. Using the body modification ability of the Asura Path, the user detaches their hand, revealing a cluster of missiles. The further the hand is removed from the arm, the more missiles can be fired at once. These can be fired to create widespread damage or as homing devices seeking a single target. Even if the Asura Path has sustained significant damage, it can still produce missiles from its body, as it did when Pain attempted to kill Choji. Flash. A swift ranged attack where the user swings their sword at a target after coating it in chakra, releasing a sharp crescent of chakra in the arc of the blade that was swung. Flashing Bell Beams. Shion's bell flashes and sends a ray of flashing pink light towards the enemy. It is powerful enough to cleanly slice through 3 of Morio's Ghost Army soldiers. Flower Ninja Art. Flower Ninja Art is a subset of ninjutsu and genjutsu involving secret flower-oriented techniques, used by a clan in the Land of Vegetables. The 2 known users of flower art are Kikunojo and Yurinojo. Flower Ninja Art. Many blooming flowers. After surrounding the opponent with flowers, the user will ignite the flowers. These flames will then shoot towards and explode on the target. Flower Ninja Art. Many releasing flowers. This technique turns flowers into bombs that can be detonated like explosive tags. Flower Shuriken. Falling blossoms and scattering leaves. This technique will make flowers hover in the air before hardening and spinning at high speeds. The flowers will then be launched at the target. Their hardened state will allow them to cut targets as effectively as metal shuriken. Flower Fruit Mountain. The Flower Fruit Mountain is a lava release technique utilized by Son Goku and his Jinchuriki Roshi. While in his transformed state, Roshi creates a volcano which then explodes violently, sending molten rock flying up in all directions, the effects of which resemble a giant flower. The lava produced is said to be able to melt anything in its path.